Chapter 972. After Shui Yinyu and Hu Feiyun left, Ling Han began to seriously observe the cavern ahead. This cavern was very large, and because there was lava flowing in the underground river, it wasn't dark here, but it wasn't very bright either. He found a huge lava beast in the deepest part. Ordinary lava beasts were only 3 meters tall and 6 meters long, but this one was 15 meters tall and 30 meters long. Its skin was also darker, and covered in strange patterns. At this moment it was sleeping on its stomach, its mouth open, and lava-like saliva rolled down, splashing onto the ground. Lava Beast King, its aura was extremely powerful, and even though they were separated by such a long distance, it still caused Ling Han's hair to stand on end and shiver. Late stage of the high extreme peak stage and even into the consummate level. Being stared at by Ling Han, the Beast King suddenly sensed something. It opened its eyes, raised its head, and looked around suspiciously. However, after looking around, it did not find anything out of place, so it lowered its head and went back to sleep. Hoo, its snoring was like thunder. Ling Han appeared from the Black Tower, and thought about how to snatch the mountain river stone. Snatching it by force was feasible. Ling Han calculated his battle prowess. Now, his cultivation was close to the peak of the low extreme, and his power had reached the medium extreme close to the peak. Using a secret technique, his battle prowess could reach the peak of the medium extreme. He hadn't reached the high extreme yet. However, it was very likely that his opponent was in the consummate level, and had formed 4 mountain rivers. Merely in terms of power, it was an absolute suppression. Even if his physique was strong, and he had the indestructible Heaven Scroll to quickly recover, if the difference in power was too great, he wouldn't be able to get close at all, and would be knocked down with a single slap. Advancing rashly would only be taking a beating for nothing. More importantly, what was the point of fighting without knowing where the mountain river stone was? Ling Han's heart moved. If he used the annihilating dragon star arrow? Though this Beast King's battle prowess was very frightening, it was so lazy that it didn't seem to have any vigilance, and was practically a live target. I'll give it a try. He took out his bow and fired the ultimate arrow. At the same time, he activated the Eye of Truth to search for the Beast King's weakness. However, the Lava Beast King abruptly stood up. It was true that it was lazy, but this kind of expert had an instinctive sense of danger. It could sense the murderous intent of others within a short distance, let alone when it was being pointed at by an arrow. It immediately ran in the direction of the cave entrance. The patterns on its skin shone, interweaving with flame divine patterns that could melt gold and melt bone. But when it ran to the entrance of the cave, it didn't discover anything. This made it very puzzled. It clearly felt a strong sense of danger, but why didn't it discover anything? Could it be that it played too crazily with a little beast yesterday and didn't have enough rest? It slowly walked back and lay down to sleep again. After that, inside the Black Tower, Ling Han's eyes lit up. Beneath the Beast King was a stone that stood out from the rest. Unlike the other stones, which were crimson in color, this one was pitch black. It was like a speck of green in a sea of flowers. It was too obvious. And on this stone there were 7 scattered crimson stones. Even from so far away, Ling Han could be sure that they were mountain river stones. Mountain river stones with special attributes possessed the power of flames here. Now that he knew where the mountain river stones were, how to collect them was a big problem. Ling Han exited the Black Tower, drew out his bow again, and activated the annihilating dragon star arrow. The Beast King was startled again, and ran over to investigate. However, it naturally returned empty-handed. Ling Han played hide-and-seek with it. After a dozen times, this Beast King was practically doubting life. When Ling Han drew out the annihilating dragon star arrow again, it only raised its head lazily to look around, but didn't get up again. The sense of danger disappeared again. The Beast King lay down to sleep. It was almost certain that this had to be its imagination. It definitely had done too much last night. Once, twice, thrice. The Beast King's reaction became more and more indifferent. In the end, it didn't even bother to raise its head, and only blinked once. At this moment, Ling Han launched a fatal blow. Xiao, the divine arrow, shot out as fast as lightning. The Beast King suddenly opened its eyes, and when it discovered that streak of light shooting out, it was finally greatly shocked. It hurriedly tried to get up, and the patterns all over its body began to glow, interweaving into flames. However, it was too late. If it had reacted when Ling Han drew his bow, then with its powerful strength, it would definitely have been able to make full preparations. To say nothing else, merely the patterns all over its body glowed, interweaving into flames, and perhaps the arrow would directly be melted into molten iron. But the annihilating dragon star arrow had been shot, and it still wanted to dodge? What a joke. Perhaps a Sun Moon tier elite could do it, but it definitely couldn't be this Beast King. Who? The black arrow had already shot into the Beast King's eye, and not even the tail of the arrow could be seen. The Beast King released a furious roar of pain. The divine patterns on the arrow exploded, producing a terrifying destructive power. A quarter of the Beast King's head was blown off, and blood splattered everywhere. A few broken bones could also be seen. It was really unlucky. If it didn't open its eyes, its eyelids could at least provide some protection, but now, its eyes directly bore the might of this arrow. So what if it was a Beast King in the consummate level of the Mountain River tier? But a Beast King was a Beast King after all. Even after taking such an arrow, it didn't die. Its single eye fixed on Ling Han, and finally discovered the culprit that had injured it. It roared angrily, and charged towards Ling Han with its 4 short legs. Hong long long it stomped down, causing the whole cavern to tremble slightly. The patterns all over its body were already completely glowing, interweaving into divine flames that were enough to instantly burn cultivators in the low extreme or even medium extreme into ashes. I'm not going to play with you anymore. Ling Han's figure flashed, and instantly disappeared. Where was he? The Beast King flew over and continued to search. Its single eye shone with a frightening ferocity, but it didn't discover anything. It was extremely furious. A quarter of its head had been blown off, and this was a serious injury, causing it both pain and fury. But what could it do if it couldn't find him? After searching wildly for a while, it could only retreat. It had to control its injuries as soon as possible, or its life would be in danger. But just at this moment, that despicable human appeared again. Another arrow was knocked, and he wanted to shoot it. Instantly, all the hair on the Beast King's body stood up. If it had one, it would have hurriedly stood up, divine flames interweaving all over its body, and assumed a defensive stance. Ling Han was only putting on an act. He had just shot out an annihilating dragon star arrow, and now all the strength in his body was exhausted, so how could he still fire another arrow? But it didn't matter that he couldn't fire an arrow. This Beast King was already frightened by the mere twang of a bow, and just putting on an act was enough to scare it to death. Meanwhile, Ling Han himself was using true origin stones to recover his origin power. Physical strength could slowly recover on its own, and though there was no way to speed it up, it recovered much faster than origin power. At most, it would only take a few dozen breaths' time to return to its full state. But what about that Beast King? The moment it thought of healing itself, Ling Han would scare it with arrows, causing it to immediately enter into a state as if it was facing a great enemy. Under such torment, it lost more and more blood, and its condition became worse and worse. Chapter 973. This was a consummate level Beast King, but it had just advanced into this cultivation level. Although it had formed 4 mountains, there were only 3 rivers, and the 4th mountain was clearly a size smaller. In this mystery realm, consummate level was practically invincible. But now this powerful Beast King was being toyed around in the palm of Ling Han's hand, and was only a hair's breadth away from death. After Ling Han drew his bow countless times to threaten it, this Beast King was already powerless to activate its divine flame. Its whole body lay on the ground, and only released angry roars from its nostrils. However, its might had already receded like the tide. Now this Beast King was like a phoenix that had lost its feathers, and was inferior to a chicken. However, a centipede would not fall down even if it died. Not to mention this was a consummate level Beast King, and its battle prowess might be 2 or 3 stars higher than its cultivation level. As long as it was still alive, it could not be underestimated. Ling Han did not act rashly. His physical strength had completely recovered, and his origin power was also almost completely recovered with the help of true origin stones. Naturally, he did not mind wasting a bit more time with it. The Beast King panted, its single eye still fierce, but its expression was becoming dimmer and dimmer. How much longer did he have to wait? Half a day, 1 day, or 3 days were one thing, but such a powerful demonic beast could be tormented for a few days even if it was about to die. Ling Han did not have much patience. He was afraid that if the time came, he would be expelled from the mystery realm, and the 7 mountain river stones below would no longer be his. He decided to take the risk, and his confidence came from his powerful physique and recovery ability. He walked towards the Beast King. "Seventh uncle, we've brought the crimson ground locking net this time. It will definitely be able to restrain that Beast King." In the flame cave, there were 4 people walking towards the deepest part of the cave. Their team was relatively powerful, and the demonic beasts they encountered on the way were all instantly killed by their combined forces. There was practically no pause. The clan prepared for this for over 1,000 years, and finally successfully refined the crimson ground locking net. As long as one is caught in the net, their cultivation level will be forcibly suppressed by a minor level. An elder stroked his beard and smiled. Among the 4 people, only he had a head full of white hair. The other 3 were all young, but their cultivation levels were not weak. The lowest was in the late stage of the low extreme, and the remaining 2 were in the peak stage of the low extreme. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to sweep through all of them. If Ling Han had seen them, he would have recognized them as the 4 members of the Luo clan. Before entering the Arcana realm, they had revealed obvious killing intent. However, after entering the Arcana realm, they had randomly appeared in different places, so Ling Han had not had the chance to meet them. "Damn it, we've never encountered that ant from that small world," said one of the youths. "There's no need to take him to heart. If we don't encounter him, so be it. In any case, the Dark Knight Hall has already accepted the mission, so that brat definitely won't be able to escape death. The main focus this time is to kill that Beast King and obtain the Flame Mountain River Stones," the elder said seriously. "Yes," the other 3 young men replied sternly. Although this old man's talent was not very high and he had only become a 4-star genius by relying on a secret technique, there was no room for him to improve further. However, at the very least, his current strength was enough to suppress them. Moreover, this was a contribution to the family. He had given up a chance to advance, so he had to be respected. The elder nodded and said, "That Beast King is in existence at the peak stage of the high extreme. Even if it has been weakened by a minor level, it is still at the peak stage of the medium extreme, and the lava beast is born with the ability to control divine fire. The Beast King's battle prowess can still reach the early stage of the high extreme, so we must not be careless. Don't worry, 7th uncle. We all have god tools in our hands, which are enough to increase our battle prowess by another star. As long as you keep the Beast King busy, we will be able to severely wound it and exhaust it to death," one of the youths said. That's the kind of determination I want." The elder was very satisfied. Ling Han approached, but the Beast King did not have any reaction, as if it was so heavily injured that it did not even have the strength to raise its claws. If you continue to pretend to be dead, then I'll directly subdue you." Ling Han condensed his divine sense, and suddenly blasted out with the 7-kill subduing soul technique. This had not been of much use before. The Beast King's cultivation level was too high, and its divine sense was naturally able to crush him. If he used his spirit to attack it, it was very likely that he would receive a splitting headache from the backlash. But it was different now. This Beast King was already at the end of its rope, and its divine sense had weakened to the extreme. Hong! The Beast King suddenly raised its claws and swatted at Ling Han. This strike was still powerful and domineering. "Haha, I tricked you once, so I'll take a hit from you head-on so that you won't die in vain." Ling Han did not hide into the Black Tower, but instead shot out a strike at full power to resist. Wang golden light blazed in his palms, and the earth-overturning seal spread out, forming multiple divine patterns in the center of his palms. Pong! He took a hit from the Beast King head-on, and was instantly swept away. The power of the 2 sides was not on the same level at all. Wah! Ling Han's body crashed into the cavern wall, and then bounced back, lying on the ground. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He wiped the corner of his mouth, and felt as if his body was boiling, extremely uncomfortable. As expected of the consummate level, the power is really shocking. Ling Han crawled up. Pa pa pa, a few dislocated bones instantly returned to their places. His physique was really too strong. Even a strike from the consummate level could not break his bones, and only dislocated them. Of course, this was also because the Beast King was heavily injured, and could not explode with its strongest power no matter what. The Beast King stared at him with its single eye. There was shock, confusion, and anger in its eyes, but there was also a sliver of resignation. It could not kill this human with a full power strike, so it was not wrong for it to die in his opponent's hands. It was already in a state of dying, and after forcefully exploding with its full power, it was even worse. It could not even open its eyelid, and its single eye slowly closed. I'll send you on your last journey. Ling Han shot out a 7-kill subduing soul technique, paralyzing this Beast King, and drew it into the Black Tower. He used supreme power to kill this Beast King, so that it would not have to endure any more pain. Ling Han's eyes turned to the 7 mountain river stones on the black rock, and a smile appeared at the corners of his lips. After working so hard for so long, it was finally time to reap the rewards. His sharp divine sense discovered a sliver of movement, and he immediately turned around. Xiao 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 xiao. 4 people suddenly rushed in from the entrance, 1 old and 3 young. Each of them grabbed a corner of a giant net, and used their origin power to activate it, causing the giant net to exude a crimson glow. They were naturally the 4 members of the Luo clan. They had taken out the crimson ground-locking net at the entrance, and activated it in advance. Then they leaped in wanting to launch a sneak attack on that Beast King, and use this divine net to trap it. However, when they suddenly rushed in, they discovered that there was no sign of the Beast King. On the contrary, there was only a young man staring at them. It's you. The 4 of them suddenly recognized him. Wasn't this the ant from the small world? Ha 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 ha. I searched high and low for it, but found it without any effort. One of the young men laughed loudly. Chapter 974. Mountain River Stones. The old man from the Luo clan stared at the 7 mountain river stones on the black boulder, his eyes burning. 7 special attribute mountain river stones. If they were all spent on one person, the Luo clan would nurture a super prodigy. On the other hand, although he was a 4-star genius, he could only stay in the low extreme forever. He was a freak that was forcefully nurtured for the heavenly sea mystery realm. In this world full of immortal level elites, what was the battle prowess of the peak stage of the medium extreme? What the Luo clan needed was battle prowess of the Sun Moon tier, or even the heavenly body tier. 7 special attribute mountain river stones could increase one's battle prowess by 1 star. There was no doubt that it would increase one's battle prowess from 1 star to 2 stars, but it was not certain that it would increase from 2 stars to 3 stars, and from 3 stars to 4 stars. It was naturally more difficult to increase one's battle prowess further. For a 4-star genius, perhaps 7 mountain river stones would not even increase their battle prowess by half a star. No matter what, special attribute mountain river stones were precious treasures, and also the focus of their trip. For a moment, the 4 people from the Luo clan did not wonder where the Beast King had gone, and why Ling Han had appeared here. They did not care. How mean, go get the mountain river stones, the old man from the Luo clan instructed. Luo Haomin nodded hurriedly, and said, yes, 7th uncle. He strode towards the black boulder, his face filled with uncontrollable excitement. He was a talent that the Luo clan had focused on nurturing, and had arrived thousands of years earlier than Luo Ba and Luo Lai. However, in terms of talent he was slightly inferior to Luo Ba. Among the people that the clan focused on nurturing, his ranking was below Luo Ba. But now that Luo Ba was dead, his ranking had risen, and he had the right to use these special mountain river stones. Hey, don't reach out for things that are not yours. You're either a thief or a robber, Ling Han said with a smile. His figure flashed and he was even faster than Luo Haomin. Since I am here, there is still a share for you. The old man from the Luo clan sneered. He released the hand that was holding the giant net, and leaped out, intercepting Ling Han. He did not take Ling Han seriously at all. He was merely at the Shattering Void tier, so what if he was invincible? That was only limited to the level of mortals. But once he entered the divine realm, it was really not enough. Ling Han didn't take out his bow and arrow. He used his body as a bow and his origin energy as an arrow, shooting towards Luo Haomin. What kind of power was he now? He was close to the peak stage of the medium extreme. Thus, when he used the annihilating dragon star arrow technique to control this arrow, even without a bow or arrow, the might of this strike had reached the peak stage of the medium extreme. Luo Haomin similarly didn't take Ling Han seriously. Moreover, he still had seventh uncle to take care of him from behind. In his eyes there were only those 7 mountain river stones. This was an astonishing amount of wealth. Honestly speaking, even if he sold himself, he still wouldn't be able to compare. He didn't pay any attention to them and continued to dash forward. How fast was the annihilating dragon star arrow? Puff Luo Haomin was instantly hit by the arrow. The elemental energy arrow pierced through his back and exited through his chest. At this moment, his elemental energy was almost depleted. With a flash, the entire arrow disappeared into thin air. How is that possible? Luo Haomin slowly turned around and reached out to grab something, but his body had already fallen backwards when his hand was only halfway out. Pong, he collapsed onto the ground, his aura completely gone. He was at the peak stage of the low extreme, and furthermore he was a 1-star genius, yet he had actually been killed with a single strike. The old man from the Luo clan was both furious and shocked. He had already caught up to Ling Han, and with a loud roar, he punched out at Ling Han. "You killed my people, so I'll kill you," he roared. "Die." Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "You still can't do it." He also punched out at the old man. Pung, with a single strike, the old man from the Luo clan was instantly sent flying. It was true that he was at the peak stage of the low extreme, and it was also true that he was also a 4-star genius. However, his power definitely couldn't reach the medium extreme. Facing Ling Han head-on was simply asking for trouble. Ling Han withdrew his fist and continued to walk towards the black boulder in a calm and unruffled manner. Only now did the 3 members of the Luo clan reveal expressions of astonishment. They were completely unable to imagine that Ling Han had clearly only been at the Shattering Void tier when he had entered the Mystery Realm. How had he become so powerful that he could even force back a cultivator at the peak stage of the medium extreme of the Mountain River tier after a dozen or so days? Mountain River Stone. The old man from the Luo clan immediately understood. Only Mountain River Stones could allow a Shattering Void tier cultivator to advance to the Mountain River tier effortlessly. Moreover, they could advance so quickly that they wouldn't encounter any bottlenecks before reaching the peak stage of the low extreme. Gasp, just how many Mountain River Stones did this brat obtain? The 2 youths from the Luo clan also understood, and couldn't help but go crazy with jealousy. They had already entered this place dozens of times, but they had only obtained 3 Mountain River Stones in total, and they were all ordinary ones. Use the Crimson Ground locking net. Capture him. The old man from the Luo clan didn't dare to underestimate Ling Han anymore. This ant from a small world was already extremely powerful at the Shattering Void tier, and now that he had advanced to the Mountain River tier, even if he had used Mountain River Stones to advance, he was no different from a true Mountain River tier before reaching the medium extreme. One had to realize that this brat had passed 8 levels when he entered the Scarlet Heaven Academy, and had the potential to become a 4-star genius. The 3 of them unfurled the large net, and enveloped Ling Han. Ling Han put away the 7 Mountain River Stones first. He definitely couldn't lose them. However, this way he didn't have time to dodge, and was enveloped by the large net. He was slightly surprised because the large net was exuding a mysterious power that forcefully suppressed his cultivation level. He had originally been close to the peak stage of the low extreme, but now he was barely in the early stage, so he could just barely be considered to be in the Mountain River tier. Ha ha ha. The 3 from the Luo clan laughed loudly. This was the Crimson Ground locking net, and it had been created to deal with the Lava Beast King. Who knew how much wealth the Luo clan had spent to create it? However, as long as they could capture that Beast King, it would be worth it no matter what price they had to pay. Because this time, next time, and the time after that, they would be able to obtain an endless stream of special attribute Mountain River Stones. Even the Beast King couldn't stop it, what more Ling Han? He had already entered the net, so he was like a turtle in a jar. Brat, obediently hand over the Mountain River Stones. If I'm in a good mood, I might grant you a quick death, a young man said. His name was Luo Jian. Humph, he dared to kill a member of the Luo clan, so it wouldn't be too much to dismember him. It's a pity that this can't be made public, the elder from the Luo clan said with some pity. Killing in the mystery realm was because there was no evidence left. However, killing a disciple of the Scarlet Heaven Academy could be done in public? Unless the Luo clan didn't want to stay in the Chaotic Star's majestic empire anymore. Then I'll slowly refine him. A cruel smile spread across Luo Jian's face. He knew that Ling Han's physique was incredibly tough, comparable to level 1 godly metal. Die! The elder from the Luo clan drew out a sword. There were veined patterns on the blade, and under his control, it exuded an astonishing light. This was a level 1 god tool, and it had been bestowed by the clan for this trip to the mystery realm. He raised the sword and pierced it towards Ling Han's heart. Chapter 976. In a battle between experts, the slightest difference can lead to a huge loss. The main reason for this was because Ling Han was much stronger than the Luo clan's patriarch. Thus, after he used the divine runes of gravity, he was able to clearly affect the Luo clan's patriarch. Otherwise, the effects wouldn't be so obvious. As the saying goes, a single force can break through a myriad of techniques. When one strength could crush an opponent, any technique was no longer important. Ling Han's strength was not that strong, but it was easy for him to affect the Luo family elder. Despicable brat. The elder from the Luo family had already been struck a few times. His white hair was in a mess, and he was in an extremely sorry state. He shouted, "You've offended my Luo family. You'll die a horrible death. Not only will you die, but your parents will also be slaughtered. Your women will be ravaged, and your children will be slaves for all eternity. My Luo clan has been passed down for millions of years. How can a trash from a small world like you possibly shake us? How can you match us?" Ling Han's expression immediately turned cold, and he said, "What a cheap mouth." He used 10,000 techniques returned to one. Instantly, the sword ray turned into a long and thick beam of light that slashed towards his opponent. In the shattering void tier, even if he channeled 10,000 techniques returned to one, he would still need to slightly condense origin power, but now he could casually wave it out. This meant that the 10,000 techniques returned to one was no longer able to consume too much of his elemental energy, so he could easily unleash it. This also meant that the might of the attack had been weakened. There was nothing that could be done. This was only a sword technique from a Sun-Moon tier force, so how powerful could it be? However, the power of the sword was still quite extraordinary. It raised Ling Han's combat strength to the level of 5 stars. Bang bang bang, the old man from the Luo family turned pale with fright after several moves. He exclaimed, You're a 5-star genius." He was a sub-minor level higher than Ling Han, and he himself was a 4-star genius. But now, he could only fight to a draw with Ling Han and was even at a disadvantage. There was only one possibility. His opponent was a 5-star genius. This was far too terrifying. Even the left and right ministers and the 7 generals were only 4-star geniuses. Only Empress Luan Xing had reached the legendary 5-star level. This kind of enemy must be eliminated in the cradle, otherwise the Luo family will be consigned to eternal damnation. 5 stars? Ling Han chuckled. He didn't take out the annihilating Dragon Star Arrow's ultimate arrow to scare the old man. Otherwise, the old man might have fainted from fright. However, secret techniques were limited by their cultivation level. For example, when he used the 3 styles of Black Origin now, he could increase his battle prowess by 1 star. However, when he advanced to the Heavenly Body tier, the might of these 3 styles would definitely decrease sharply. It would be impossible for them to have such an effect again. Therefore, power was eternal, and that was the true strength. Ling Han nodded internally. It was very wise of him to raise his power to the limit of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier before breaking through. He unceasingly used the divine runes of gravity to affect the old man from the Luo clan. Under his control, the divine runes produced a miraculous effect, causing the old man from the Luo clan to constantly stumble back and forth. His combat prowess was greatly affected. In order to defeat an opponent, the method wasn't limited to increasing one's own battle prowess. Weakening the opponent was also possible. For example, the group of 4 from the Luo clan had come with the Crimson Ground locking net. Wasn't it to weaken the Lava Beast King and pull the battle prowess of both sides to the same level? Then they could use their rich experience to defeat the other party. However, they didn't know that the Beast King had already advanced to the consummate level. Even if they had the Crimson Ground locking net, it was still more likely that they would be defeated. Under Ling Han's continuous barrage of attacks, the old man from the Luo clan was also wounded repeatedly. In the end, his sword pierced through his heart. He grabbed the blade of his sword with both hands and glared at Ling Han with resentment in his eyes. He said, "Ha ha ha, you're a 5-star genius. This isn't a good thing. Once people find out, countless people will target you and kill you. I'll wait for you in the netherworld." After saying this, he reluctantly swallowed his anger. Ling Han lightly shook his sword and put it back into the Black Tower. He calmly said, "You don't need to worry about that. When I'm strong enough, I'll push down the Luo clan first and have them accompany you." He searched out the spatial spirit tools of the 4 from the Luo clan and robbed them of several hundred true origin stones. Additionally, there was also an ordinary mountain river stone. This caused him to shake his head repeatedly. He had obtained 10 special mountain river stones. After returning to the depths of the cave, he picked up the Crimson Ground locking net again. This item wasn't bad and could greatly reduce the opponent's cultivation level. However, he didn't know what its limit was. Could it be effective against Sun Moon tier elites? With this item, I can easily suppress even elites in the high extreme. He turned his attention to the large black rock. The appearance of an item that was completely out of place in this environment would naturally arouse his curiosity. Moreover, why was the Lava Beast King lying on this rock? Why would a mountain river stone appear on it? He tried to lift the rock but couldn't move it. Had it fused with the ground, or was its own weight too astonishing? Ling Han tried to stretch out his divine sense and wrap it around the rock. As long as he could do this, he could put it into the Black Tower no matter how heavy it was. The environment here was harsh. Ling Han's physique wasn't afraid, but his divine sense hadn't been cultivated to such a powerful level. After entering deep underground, it was immediately pricked by the boiling lava, making him want to immediately withdraw his divine sense. He forcefully suppressed this urge and continued to spread out the net of divine sense. Bit by bit, he spent close to the time of an incense stick. Finally, a smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Wang, the black rock, instantly disappeared. He stretched out his head and saw that there was a pit that was as deep as 7 meters in the ground. The bottom of the pit was actually black, and he didn't know whether it was water, metal, or something else. It was terrifyingly deep. Ling Han threw a rock down. Pa! The rock instantly exploded, turning into dust. He was extremely shocked. One had to know that the rock structure here was relatively stable. At least he could only create some sparks under a full power strike, but now it collapsed with a single touch. Its destructive power was truly terrifying. Wang. Just at this moment, a shocking scene appeared. A human face actually emerged from under the black rock. However, this black rock seemed to be extremely elastic. It was continuously stretched but didn't break. Though this human face was completely normal with a nose, a mouth, and eyes, it was too big. How big was the black rock earlier? This face was only slightly smaller, larger than a manhole cover. It was really hard to imagine how shocking this person's true size was. Even separated by such a layer, Ling Han could still feel a terrifying aura coming from that human face. There was a kind of trembling that made even his soul tremble. So powerful. This was definitely not the Sun Moon tier, but even surpassed the Heavenly Body tier. Ling Han suddenly understood. That black rock was definitely not placed there for his own good, but to suppress this cage, or in other words, the passageway. When this face reached a distance of almost 9 meters, it finally reached its limit, unable to advance any further. This human face showed a smile and began to speak, but no sound came out. But after a while, a voice sounded in Ling Han's sea of consciousness. "Lowly human, help me open the passageway, and I can grant you a lifetime of glory." Ling Han laughed and said, "Is this the attitude you use to ask for help?" Chapter 977. Ling Han didn't have the ability to use his spiritual sense to penetrate that black mass. That black mass could easily shatter rocks. If his spiritual sense touched it, it would definitely be destroyed. From this, it could be seen that the person in front of him was much stronger than him. However, the other party could not come over. Otherwise, there would be no need to tempt him. Lowly human, do you know who I am? The human face opened its mouth, but after a while, a voice rang in Ling Han's mind. Open the passage for me, and I can even grant you a country for you to rule. Ling Han was very interested in this person's identity and said, Oh, who are you? His voice and divine sense couldn't reach the other side, but the person opposite him was too powerful and could hear his voice. The person sneered and said, I'm one of the strongest people in the world. You can call me Devil Lord Zhenyi. Ling Han was startled and said, You're from the netherworld? Generally speaking, only the creatures of the netherworld would call themselves devils. In the netherworld, demons were not derogatory. Instead, they were symbols of power just like gods. What kind of level was a demon master? Ling Han wasn't very sure, but he knew that this demon master Zhenyi was possibly even more powerful than Empress Luanxing. It was rumored that this mystery realm had been left behind by a great elite of the Genesis tier. Then it was extremely likely that this was the weak point of the immortal realm in the netherworld, and could be opened up, forming a passageway that connected the two realms. In that case, this patch of black was the boundary between the god realm and the netherworld. Ha ha ha, that's right. I'm also an all-powerful expert in the netherworld. Human, hurry up and help me open the passage. I can bestow upon you the identity of a demon servant and teach you supreme demonic arts. Demon Master Zhenyi tempted. Have you become stupid from cultivating demonic arts? Ling Han snorted. You should continue staying there. Human. Demon Master Zhenyi roared furiously. This realm wall won't be able to hold me back for long. It's just a matter of a few hundred or a few thousand years. I'm giving you a chance to gain glory for all eternity. Once I break through, I'll definitely throw you into the devil prison and make you suffer a fate worse than death. Then I'll be waiting. Ling Han said with a smile. Also, what demon master? You actually dare to threaten a mere mountain river tier cultivator like me? You really have some face. Demon Master Zhenyi was speechless. In reality, if it weren't for the fact that he was in an extremely dire situation, why would he need the help of a cultivator at the mountain river tier? He humped and said, Human, this is your last chance. Don't make a mistake. After Ling Han knew the other party's identity, how could he have the thought of asking a tiger for its skin? His attention was focused on the inside of the Black Tower, and he saw that there were multiple divine patterns at the bottom of the black rock, which were incredibly complicated. No wonder it could suppress this place. Ling Han did not dare to be greedy. With a thought, the black stone appeared out of thin air and fell into the pit. Demon Master Zhenyi's face revealed an obvious expression of anger, but it was quickly blocked by the black rock. Pong! The black rock crushed Demon Master Zhenyi, and the deep pit instantly disappeared. No! Demon Master Zhenyi's voice reverberated in Ling Han's mind. However, it was immediately cut off. It was clear that the black rock was very effective in suppressing this place. Ling Han sat on the ground and thought for a while before standing up. If this mystery realm existed to suppress the passageway between the two realms, then why would it allow people to enter? Moreover, it even had a treasure like the mountain river stone. Wasn't it purposely trying to lure people into it? However, if this mystery realm was made into a completely inaccessible place, it was likely that many people would try their best to enter it. After all, the way of thinking of humans was very strange. If you don't let me enter, then I'll insist on entering. Moreover, if one could enter once every 10 years, and the strongest cultivator would only be at the low extreme of the mountain river tier, this wouldn't have much of an impact on this place. Ling Han was a special case. As the saying went, it was better to disperse than to block it. Right now, everyone's attention was completely focused on the mountain river stone, so they naturally would not care about what the mystery realm was suppressing. However, this wasn't a long-term solution. One day the barrier would still be broken through. Ling Han walked out of the cavern. He had made a huge profit this time. He had obtained a whopping 8 mountain river stones, and 7 of them were of special attributes. In addition, he had also obtained spiritual meat. When he returned, he would be able to break through to the immortal level of the body refinement realm. On his way out, he encountered a few people. They were naturally here to search for treasures. They all stared at him cautiously, and only left quickly after passing by him. In this place, who would dare to be careless? After half a day, he finally walked out of the large cavern. He saw two women sitting together on a large rock in front of him. Both of them were astonishingly beautiful. However, one was cute and naive while the other was seductive. They had completely different styles. They were Shui Yinyu and Hu Feiyun. Ling Han, you're finally out. You made big sister Shui and I wait for so long. Hu Feiyun immediately complained. Ling Han glanced at Shui Yinyu with a smile, and said, I made you worry. I didn't. Shui Yinyu was very stubborn, and refused to admit it. How was it? How was it? Did you kill that big ugly monster? Hu Feiyun asked hurriedly. They had waited for so long, so they naturally wanted to know the result. However, Shui Yinyu smiled and said, that lava beast king was at the peak stage of the high extreme, so how could I kill it? It was luck that I could steal a mountain river stone. Ling Han pretended to pinch Shui Yinyu's pretty face, and said, how dare you look down on your husband like this? What punishment do you deserve? Shui Yinyu hurriedly jumped away. Her face flushed red, and she scolded, pervert. Ling Han chuckled and said, this counts as a pervert? You're really too naive. Shui Yinyu couldn't help but recall the scene of him pushing her and kissing her. Her pretty face heated up, and her eyes turned into ripples of water, filled with seductive charm. Ling Han didn't dare to continue. That bewitching woman was too seductive, and he was really afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself and drag her into the Black Tower. Next, it seems like the Windmill Mountain is the closest to us. Ling Han looked at the map and pointed to a place. The Windmill Mountain was another place that produced special mountain river stones. There were a total of 18 peaks on this mountain, and they were like windmills. The 18 peaks formed a wheel, half of which was underground, and the other half was above ground, and would rotate at fixed intervals. Once it rotated, it would create a terrifying gust of wind that could easily tear cultivators to shreds. Thus, it was difficult to obtain mountain river stones here. In fact, it was even more dangerous than the flame cave, and one could easily lose their life. The special mountain river stones produced here were of the metal attribute, and could allow cultivators to cultivate sharp divine patterns. When they launched an attack, their destructive power would increase greatly. The group of three set out again, but they hadn't even walked halfway when they felt an indescribable power attack them. They had already disappeared from where they were, and when they reappeared, they were already in a stretch of wilderness. Not only them, but at least 1,000 people were also looking around with blank expressions. Moreover, the powerful figures that had escorted them all leaped over. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm was closed. And this was the end? Ling Han felt that it was a great pity. There were a total of 6 places in the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm that produced special mountain river stones, but he had only gone to 2 places, and it was completely not enough. But in a mere instant, he discovered that a few killing intents had locked onto him. Shua, a flash of sword light suddenly slashed over, wanting to take his life. Ow! Chapter 978. This slash was incomparably resplendent, and even the sun in the sky paled in comparison. He was definitely not an elite of the sun-moon tier, but rather a great elite of the heavenly body tier. Ling Han's first reaction was to hide inside the Black Tower. This was not a question of courage. Even if his current physique was comparable to level 2 godly metal, so what? A single slash from the sword would definitely turn him into ashes. However, right at this moment, a golden staff suddenly descended from the sky and appeared in front of him. The divine patterns on the staff lit up and formed a golden area that protected him, Shui Yinyu, and Hu Feiyun behind him. Ding! The sword light slashed onto the rod, causing a series of sparks to explode. Boom! A terrifying wave of chi streaked across the 2 sides of the golden area and the sky above it. Those were numerous sword patterns that caused the space to become slightly unstable, as if it was about to split apart. Humph! You dare to kill my people in front of me? How dare you? A mighty figure appeared in front of Ling Han, one hand firmly grasping the staff, giving off a domineering aura. Ding Lian, one of the 7 generals of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. He was tall and sturdy, and he wore a crimson armor that was covered in divine runes. It was clearly a divine artifact. His black hair danced wildly in the wind, and the way he held the golden rod in his hand made him look like an undefeatable god of war. One man holds the pass against 10,000 enemies. The most famous battle of this elite was when he charged into the Eternity Heaven Majestic Empire alone and killed a traitor in the enemy's imperial capital. In the end, he even successfully broke out of the encirclement and returned to the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire alive. Of course, he had also paid a huge price and had almost died. It took him a few hundred years to recover from his wounds, and it was said that there were still residual effects. Otherwise, he could possibly have broken through to the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Great General Ding, you're being too serious. You're merely at the mountain river tier, and I've killed who knows how many in the blink of an eye. A middle-aged man slowly walked out. His skin was so fair that it was almost translucent. King and Lan, do you want to fight me? Ding Li and drew his staff and pointed it at the middle-aged man. His battle intent soared into the sky, and a star materialized behind him, exuding an aura that could suppress the heavens. If a normal person was struck by a finger like this, their skin would have most likely burst open. However, this middle-aged man who was referred to as King and Lan didn't seem to care in the slightest. He was the conferred king of the Sky Empire. Not only was he extremely powerful, but he also enjoyed an extremely high status. Thus, he naturally wasn't afraid of Ding Li and he said indifferently, "This king wants this brat's life. I must kill him today." Ling Han smirked coldly and said, "Dare I ask King and Lan, how have I offended you?" At first, he didn't have the right to converse with a heavenly body tier elite. However, this person was about to kill him, so how could he still care? A look of disdain appeared on King and Lan's face. A mere ant in the low extreme of the mountain river tier actually dared to stand and speak to him? How audacious! He completely ignored Ding Li and continued to stare at him. Ding Li An's expression was cold as he said, "Do you think I don't know that this brat has ascended the Crimson Lake Island 3 times? You're worried that he'll become a great threat to the Sky Empire in the future, right? Haha, so what if that's the case?" King and Lan didn't deny it. At their level, it wasn't too low for them to lie with their eyes wide open. He chuckled and said, "However, this brat only has some potential. Even if he can truly unleash his potential, it'll be at least a few 100,000 years later. Why is Great General Ding protecting him? Then why are you in such a hurry to make a move, King and Lan?" Ding Li retorted, "Great General Ding, I've heard that you've always had a crush on the Empress. Aren't you afraid that this person's extraordinary talent will attract the Empress's interest? In fact, King and Lan suddenly changed the topic. This was Ding Li An's weakness. He was deeply in love with the Empress of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire. This was a secret that almost everyone knew. However, his power was too great and he was too powerful. Moreover, the other party involved was the Empress, so who would dare to speak carelessly about this? Now that King and Lan had exposed this secret, Ding Li An's expression instantly changed, and a terrifying killing intent appeared on his face. The Empress was his weakness, as well as his reverse scale. She was even more sacred and inviolable. King and Lan, are you seeking death? Ding Li An's killing intent boiled over. He was deeply in love with the Empress of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, yet he felt ashamed of his own inferiority. He believed that there was no man in this world who was worthy of the Empress. Now that Ding Li actually dared to look down on the Empress, his killing intent surged. King and Lan couldn't help but falter. He hadn't expected that he would fail to sow discord, and instead incite Ding Li An's killing intent. He had truly outsmarted himself. I also feel that this brat is an eyesore, and I want to get rid of him as soon as possible." Another voice traveled over. A white-robed man had appeared beside Ding Li and King and Lan. His features were as handsome as jade, and he was a rare beauty. However, his peach blossom eyes were far too flirtatious, and it was clear that he was an experienced playboy. "Qi Feng," Ding Li said solemnly. Qi Feng was a great general of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. His status was equal to Ding Li An's, and his strength was also equal. When Ding Li had charged into the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, he had been one of the elites who had chased after him. However, it was a pity that Ding Li and had still managed to escape back to the chaotic star's majestic empire. This was something that he had been brooding over ever since. The two of them could be said to be old rivals. However, it had been a very long time since the three great empires had declared war, so they hadn't fought each other for a very, very long time. Ding Li, and hand over that brat. Otherwise, I don't mind joining forces with King and Lan, Qi Feng said in a menacing voice. Ling Han was astonished. He had only ascended the island 3 times, yet even an elite of the heavenly body tier wanted to get rid of him? You're really in the limelight this time, Shui Yinyu said in a low voice. When Zhao Luan ascended the island for the 2nd time, he also encountered an assassination when he was about to leave. However, his reputation had already risen at that time. Thus, aside from Great General Sha Jing, who was escorting him, Great General Zhao Jianbai was also escorting him in secret. That was how they managed to stop the attacks from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire and Jade Drop Majestic Empire. An expression of worry appeared on her face. Who would have thought that Ling Han would be even more freakish this time? He had ascended the Crimson Lake Island 3 times. He was many times more freakish than Zhao Luan, so it would be strange if the two majestic empires didn't make a move. However, there was only a single great general, Ding Lian. How could he stop 2 elites of the heavenly body tier? King Enlon crossed his arms in front of his chest, a sinister sneer on his face. Meanwhile, Ding Lian's expression was completely wild. He waved his staff around a few times before resting it on his shoulder and said, "You guys can go ahead and try. However, I'm warning you. If one of you wants to pin me down while the other wants to kill me, then I won't be polite either. None of the juniors that you've brought along will return alive." Once these words were spoken, not only did King Enlon and Shui Yinyu's expressions change, but the challengers from the 2 majestic empires were also trembling in fear. These words came from the mouth of an elite of the heavenly body tier, so who would dare to take them as a joke? Ding Lian. Then let me experience what level your Northern Desert Crimson Sun technique has reached. Qi Feng's fists bulged. He looked like a frail scholar, yet his forte lay in fist techniques. He was renowned for his ferocious close-quarters combat. I too would like to experience General Ding's supreme staff techniques. King Enlon brandished his sword, and a boundless divine might rippled through the air. Chapter 980. Ding Li and must have only just mastered the 9th form of the staff technique, as the intent realm he displayed was extremely dry. Couldn't you have mastered it a little later? King Enlon and Qi Feng both grumbled in their minds. It was already very difficult for them to increase their strength after reaching their current level. They had both been stuck at this cultivation base for hundreds of thousands of years, and their cultivation bases had already become extremely solid. Even a slight increase in their cultivation base was extremely difficult. However, if they could take another step forward, it would be enough for them to gain an advantage in battle. Ding Lian smiled proudly and said, "Eat my staff." His staff was pointed toward the sky, and it was as if he was going to smash it down. However, when he raised his staff, streaks of golden light condensed and formed a circle of Ding Lians. There were a total of 36 of them, and they surrounded King Enlon and Qi Feng in the center. They all raised their staffs in unison, and it was as if they were golden war Buddhas. King Enlon and Qi Feng didn't dare to be careless, and they both unleashed their battle prowess to the maximum. This powerful opponent had taken another small step forward, and this made their hearts tremble. Boom! The 36 Ding Lian swung their staffs at the same time. Pung 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 pung. The sky became a world of interweaving brilliant lights, and the entire heaven and earth became dim. This was because the brilliant lights were too bright and the contrast was too stark. When the brilliant lights dissipated, King Enlon and Qi Feng could be seen to have blood at the corners of their mouths. It was clear that they had been injured. Ding Lian also spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the blood was golden in color, and it immediately burst into flames as soon as it came out of his mouth. It was completely incinerated before it could even land on the ground. Ha ha ha. Qi Feng laughed loudly and said, "Ding Lian, you haven't truly mastered the 9th form of the staff technique. You're only forcefully executing it by boiling your blood essence. You're risking your life. How many more attacks can you unleash?" Ding Lian stood proudly in the sky, and his black hair danced in the wind. His battle intent soared into the sky, and it was almost tangible. He said heroically, "Don't worry, I guarantee that I can beat you to death." Qi Feng couldn't help but have his aura stolen, and he couldn't help but humph. He indeed wanted to kill Ling Han to eliminate a potential threat, but if he had to be severely injured or even lose his life for this, then he would definitely not do it. Ding Li had shown that he was willing to fight to the death for this. However, he lacked this determination. If the two of them fought, there was a high chance that he would lose. King Enlon also frowned upon hearing this. He hadn't thought that Ding Li would risk his life to protect a measly cultivator at the mountain river tier. It was said that among the 7 generals, Ding Li was the most loyal to Empress Luan Xing. The Empress wanted him to escort these trial takers, so he carried out her orders without the slightest bit of hesitation. In fact, he did not even hesitate to risk his life. Heavenly body tier elites were actually so foolishly loyal. King Enlon had never seen Empress Luan Xing before, but he had long heard of her name. She was known as the most beautiful woman in the world, and even the emperors of 2 majestic empires were head over heels for her. A sense of curiosity involuntarily welled up in his heart, and he really wanted to meet this empress. Just what kind of beauty was she that could cause an elite like Ding Li to be so obsessed? Qi Feng's heart was already in chaos, and he too did not have the determination to fight to the death. Thus, there was no need for this battle to continue. King Enlon smiled faintly and said, "Since Great General Ding is so determined, we'll give you some face and not kill this brat." In any case, Ling Han was only in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, and he was still very far away from the heavenly body tier. There would be plenty of opportunities to kill him in the future. Qi Feng did not speak. He was extremely displeased to be suppressed by his mortal enemy in terms of aura. Ding Li rested his staff on his shoulder, and merely chuckled coldly. He did not appreciate King Enlan's kindness at all. Face was earned through battle, and definitely not out of charity. However, we won't make a move. How about letting the juniors test their skills? King Enlon suddenly changed the topic. It was clear that he had not given up on killing Ling Han. Fine. Ding Li's reply was very straightforward this time. He waved his hand and said, "As long as their cultivation level is the same or their age is similar, I will not interfere." If he still could not defeat Ling Han, then such trash deserved to die. The 3 elites landed on the ground at the same time. King Enlon smiled as he asked the juniors of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, "Which one of you wants to battle with that prodigy from the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire? Whoever is able to kill that human shall be taken in as my disciple." Qi Feng tossed out a handsome reward right away. For a time no one responded. In the Crimson Lake, many people had seen Ling Han in action. That guy was practically a freak. He was completely unscathed even after falling into the Crimson Lake. Who could match up to such a defense? Moreover, the fact that he had reached the island 3 times was already a clear indication of his strength. It wasn't that one's cultivation level was higher that the gravity they would encounter would be stronger. Instead, everyone was treated the same. Then what did the fact that Ling Han could reach the island 3 times signify? His power and physique could completely crush anyone in the low extreme. Winning glory for the majestic empire was admittedly very beautiful. However, what if he lost in front of so many people? That would be extremely humiliating. King Enlon and Qi Feng's expressions involuntarily darkened. There was actually no one who dared to challenge Ling Han. This caused them to feel extremely humiliated. Wow, Blockhead is so powerful now. Even no one dares to challenge him. Li Weiwei was both astonished and excited. Even when Zhao Luan was rising rapidly, prodigies from the 2 majestic empires would occasionally rush over to challenge him. Ling Han was actually so powerful that no one dared to challenge him. This was definitely a historical event. Seeing this, Tang Feng involuntarily clenched his fists tightly. Jealousy and hatred welled up in his heart. He swore that he would challenge Ling Han when he returned and knock him off his pedestal. A bunch of trash. Qi Feng suddenly waved a hand and said, "All of you scram to the ship." The people of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire all dejectedly boarded the warship. Who asked them to not even have the courage to challenge Ling Han? Meanwhile, King Enlon sighed. and also ordered his people to board the warship. The two elites both cast a deep glance at Ling Han, and only then did they order the warship to move and return to their majestic empire. Return. Ding Li and also waved a hand. When everyone boarded the warship, he immediately entered the cabin. His face instantly turned golden, and he suddenly knelt on the ground. Cold sweat flowed down his face like a small stream. How could he not pay a price for blocking two elites alone? Moreover, he had forcefully used the 9th technique of the Supreme Earth Staff technique at the end. This was far too taxing on him. He had only forcefully restrained himself in order to intimidate King Enlon and Ling Han, and didn't reveal any flaws. Otherwise, how could the two elites let him go? The warship sailed, and quickly entered the territory of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Ding Li and could draw on power of the nation to heal his injuries, and his mood was greatly calmed. At this moment, even if the two elites came to their senses and turned around to chase after him, he wouldn't have any fear. The warship sailed, and quickly entered the territory of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Ding Li and could draw on power of the nation to heal his injuries, and his mood was greatly calmed. At this moment, even if the two elites came to their senses and turned around to chase after him, he wouldn't be afraid. He could draw on power of the nation, and his battle prowess could increase by another star. He was completely capable of thrashing the two of them. After the warship returned to the imperial capital, everyone dispersed and returned to their respective homes. However, everyone would take another look at Ling Han before they left. This prodigy was about to rise unstoppably, but he didn't have a backer. It was relatively easy for such a prodigy to die along the way. The cultivation technique he was currently cultivating was called 7-star art, a very ordinary cultivation technique, because every student who reached the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier could obtain this cultivation technique from the academy. Of course, it would not be a high-class gift. After all, there was no such thing as reaping without sowing. The Tao Protector was responsible for explaining the cultivation technique, and Ling Han could ask for guidance if there was anything he did not understand. Ordinary students had 3 days' time to ask for guidance, but Ling Han had 7 days. This was naturally due to the generosity of the higher-ups of the Northern institution. However, Ling Han only used a day's time to ask for guidance, and on the second day, he began to comprehend in seclusion. Firstly, his comprehension ability was indeed astonishing, and secondly, he was already standing at the low extreme. If he went back to comprehend, the difficulty would naturally be much lower. Because the difficulty was teaching you how to comprehend the regulations of heaven and earth in order to form mountains and rivers, but now that the mountains and rivers had already been formed, he had skipped the most difficult step. Ling Han took out a flame mountain river stone, and refined it as he comprehended the secrets of mountains and rivers. This way, he would be able to comprehend more directly. After refining this mountain river stone, he also advanced into the peak stage of the low extreme. He did not stop, but continued to refine mountain river stones, wanting to rush to the extreme of the low extreme in one go. His estimation was wrong, for mountain river stones were completely insufficient to raise him to the extreme of the low extreme. The higher one's cultivation level, the more resources one needed to advance one step would increase exponentially. When he refined 6 flame mountain river stones, he discovered a problem. He had not reached the extreme of the low extreme, but the large mountain in his dantian could no longer inscribe any more divine patterns, and the limit was 9 divine patterns. If I continue to refine special mountain river stones, it would only be a waste. I can only advance into the medium extreme and form a second mountain river. Ling Han took out another ordinary mountain river stone to refine. This could only increase his cultivation level, and did not have any special effects. Thus it would not be a waste. I'm still at least 3 mountain river stones away from the extreme of the low extreme. Ling Han shook his head. He had not thought that the gap would actually be so large, because the early stage of the low extreme only required 1 mountain river stone. However, I'm a true mountain river tier cultivator at least. He smiled. After spending 4 days, he had finally comprehended the secrets of the mountain river tier, and had become a genuine immortal. He now had room to improve further. In his Dantian, the first mountain river had also been enlarged by about 100 times, and was no longer smaller than other mountain river tier cultivators. I just learned the 7-star technique, and it's about to expire. I need a new cultivation technique, or I won't be able to break through to the medium extreme. This is not something that mountain river stones can help me with. Ling Han shook his head. The quality of the cultivation technique directly determined the speed of cultivation. Thus, he had to accumulate enough points to exchange for an awesome cultivation technique. After he came out of seclusion, he reported to the academy that he would be leaving the Shattering Void tier division and officially entering the low extreme division. Because the academy attached great importance to him, they had already arranged for him. When he came out of seclusion, a new identity document was already waiting for him. Ling Han then went to the library. Firstly, he wanted to find a cultivation technique for the medium extreme. Even if he did not have points to exchange for it now, he should at least know the price. Secondly, he also wanted to visit Old Man Su. He had obtained an awesome technique from him, and he had not properly thanked him yet. He walked leisurely and soon arrived at the library. Everything was the same as before. Old Man Su was sitting at the door looking drowsy. "Greetings, senior." Ling Han walked over and bowed respectfully. Old Man Su did not open his eyes, and only casually asked, "You're back?" "I'm back," Ling Han said with a nod. "Go." Old Man Su waved his hand. Ling Han nodded again. He reached out and pressed on the stone slab at the door. He obtained a new permission and could go up to the second floor. He went to the second floor. The bookshelves here were twice as many as those on the first floor, but they were not books in the traditional sense. Instead, they were pieces of dominoes and some were even complete bones. There were also some godly metal covered with divine patterns, exuding an ancient aura. Chapter 982. These cabinets were all protected by restrictions, and if one stretched out one's hand, the introduction of the secret technique inside would be displayed, such as cultivation technique or martial arts technique, as well as its quality and type. More importantly, how many points were needed to exchange for these. If one had enough points, one could immediately spend points to break through the restrictions and read them. Moreover, one could comprehend here for the next 10 days. However, if one wanted to comprehend again after 10 days, one would have to spend points again, but the amount would be halved. This was also enough punishment for one, so one had to make the best use of their time. Other immortals easily had a lifespan of 100,000 or 1 million years, but once one reached this cultivation level, one would know that if one wanted to climb to the peak, no amount of time would be too much, only too little. Ling Han was only introducing. He had to at least have a rough idea before deciding which cultivation technique to choose to cultivate. Many of the cultivation techniques here were very cheap, only needing a few dozen points, but there were also expensive ones such as the Black Thunder Earth Maha technique, which actually required 5,000 points, making Ling Han speechless. Who could afford it? But thinking that ordinary students had to stay in the low extreme division for at least 5,000 years, 5,000 points really wasn't much. And the Black Thunder Earth Maha technique was definitely not the most expensive cultivation technique. There were still tens of thousands of points. In the immortal realm, cultivation techniques were divided into 10 levels, with level 1 being the lowest and level 10 the highest. For example, the 7-star technique that Ling Han had learned previously was the lowest level 1 cultivation technique. Furthermore, even if one was given the complete 7-star technique, one could only cultivate to the consummate level of the mountain river tier at most. In this place, the highest cultivation technique was level 4. According to Shui Yinyu, the Shui clan's inherited cultivation technique, the Shattered Moon technique, was level 5. Unfortunately, no matter how daring Shui Yinyu was, she did not dare to privately pass on this cultivation technique. Otherwise, both she and Ling Han would die. For any clan or sect, cultivation techniques were the most important inheritance, and definitely wouldn't be imparted easily. Good stuff, but it's really fucking expensive. Ling Han sighed repeatedly. He had thought that he could squander the 1,000 points that he had obtained from the academy, but only after sweeping through the entire place did he realize how poor he was. I can first exchange for a low-level cultivation technique and break through to the medium extreme. Then, I can slowly accumulate my strength in exchange for a higher-level cultivation technique. Ling Han made his decision. However, he didn't immediately make the exchange. This was because he still hadn't reached the true pinnacle of the low extreme, so there was no rush. He came downstairs and was about to leave when he saw Old Man Su open his eyes and say, "Young man, accompany this old man for a walk." This old man actually opened his mouth to invite me? Ling Han couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the favor and said, "Senior, please." Old Man Su stood up and walked forward, minding his own business. Ling Han, on the other hand, followed behind him, his expression respectful. The Scarlet Heaven Academy was ridiculously large, and there were dense forests and gardens everywhere in the academy. The two of them soon arrived at the side of a lake. The lake was sparkling, and looked like thousands of golden snakes dancing wildly. "I've heard about your performance in the Sky Sea Mystery Realm." Old Man Su turned around and glanced at Ling Han. He smiled and said, "Very good. Senior, you flatter me," Ling Han said modestly. Old Man Su chuckled, stroked his beard, and said, "Did you choose any cultivation technique just now? I won't hide it from Senior. I did choose a few cultivation techniques, but unfortunately, I'm embarrassingly short of money, and don't have enough to exchange at all," Ling Han said with a shake of his head. Old Man Su said, "This old man has a cultivation technique that I can teach you. However, this old man wants you to agree to a condition." "What condition?" Ling Han asked. "In the future, if you come across the highest jade essence heart, you must obtain it for this old man at all costs." Old Man Su's eyes lit up, and visions of the sun, moon, and stars surged in his eyes. His whole person also exuded a domineering aura. At this moment, he wasn't a messy old man at all. If it weren't for the fact that his hair was still white and his face was still full of wrinkles, anyone would think that he was an imposing man. Ling Han was confused and asked, "What's the highest jade essence heart? If you come across it, you'll naturally know." Old Man Su only showed his might for a moment, and his aura immediately retreated like the tide. He once again became a messy old man. He waved his hand and said, "Your present cultivation level is still too low. Even if you think about it, it's useless." "How honest. Aren't you afraid that you'll give me a blow?" "Senior, aren't you worried that I won't try my best?" Ling Han asked. After all, the other had only said that he would try his best to fight for it if he came across it, and not to try his best to search for it. There was a very big difference between these two. Old Man Su laughed loudly and said, "Then just take it that this old man has misunderstood you." Ling Han nodded and said, "Please teach me, Senior." This cultivation technique is called the Universal 8 Desolation Technique, but what this old man has is only an incomplete scroll. I can only cultivate it to the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. As for what comes after that, you'll have to think of your own way, Old Man Su said. This cultivation technique sounded awesome. Universal 8 Desolation Technique, and only I am supreme? May I ask, Senior, what level is this cultivation technique? Ling Han asked. Old Man Su thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "This old man isn't sure either, but as far as this old man knows, in terms of the speed of improvement and the quality of the origin power that can be cultivated, it will definitely not lose to anyone on the Joint Peace Planet." These words were a little exaggerated. The whole Joint Peace Planet? Then wouldn't that include the 3 great emperor tiers? He drew out a piece of jade, and tossed it over to Ling Han and said, "The cultivation technique is recorded on it. Comprehend it yourself, and if there's anything you don't understand, you can come and ask this old man." "Thank you, Senior." Ling Han cautiously put away the jade. This favor was ridiculously large. If it was really as Old Man Su said, and the level of the Universal 8 Desolation Technique was not inferior to any cultivation technique that existed on the Joint Peace Planet, then as long as it was taken out to be auctioned, it would cause everyone to go crazy and fight over it. After all, a treasure like Mountain River Stone could only nurture a few geniuses, but a supreme cultivation technique could increase the level of an entire force, and this would continue for generations at that. Ling Han did not boast. He only promised in his heart that if he knew the whereabouts of the highest jade essence heart, he would definitely try his best to obtain it. He moved to a new place of residence. The students of the low extreme division naturally could not stay with the shattering void tier division. After Ling Han moved into his new home, he did not greet anyone, but immediately began to cultivate in seclusion. He now had two missions: recultivate the Universal 8 Desolation technique, and raise his body technique to the immortal level. And when he was in seclusion, some things happened. Tang Feng issued a challenge to Ling Han in a very high-profile manner. Now that the two of them were both students of the low extreme division of the Northern Institution, this was a fair battle. However, he was ranked first and actually turned around and challenged Ling Han. This was a little unreasonable. But who asked Ling Han to be in the limelight now? Those in the low extreme all took pride in defeating him, and wanted to step on his head to advance. And if he did not defeat Ling Han, others would also suspect that Tang Feng did not live up to his reputation as the first place. Additionally, Zhao Luan had successfully broken through to the consummate level of the Mountain River tier, and it was said that he had cultivated an ancient technique that possessed incredibly frightening might. He was conferred the title of a 7th-rank military official by the Empress, and his name was branded on the totem, which allowed him to use power of the nation. All of a sudden, his reputation once again suppressed Ling Han's. Chapter 984. Ling Han faced the heavenly tribulation. Originally, it was extremely easy for his physique to pass the heavenly tribulation. With a physique as strong as level 2 godly metal, he could let the heavenly tribulation bombard him, and he wouldn't budge. But in that case, his body couldn't be tempered, and his physique could only stay where it was. Thus, in order to become stronger, he could only voluntarily shatter his body, letting his godly bones and flesh suffer the bombardment of the heavenly tribulation. Then he would use the indestructible heaven scroll to rebuild and condense his true self, allowing his physique to improve further. However, the last time he passed the heavenly tribulation was only half a year ago, and now he had to pass it a second time, making Ling Han a little nervous. That feeling was really unpleasant. If you want to become the strongest among your peers and become invincible in the future, you must endure pain that others can't. Otherwise, how can you be stronger than others? Small Tower's voice sounded in his mind. This proud pagoda always put on an appearance of preaching. Ling Han naturally knew this, but it was easy to talk. This was really unbearable pain, and it didn't even allow him to complain. Kwang, the heavenly tribulation, wouldn't care about his feelings. It just smashed down with terrifying attacks trying to obliterate him. Ling Han shattered his godly bones and accepted the baptism of the heavenly tribulation. Someone was passing the heavenly tribulation. This commotion was too big, and naturally attracted the attention of the people in the academy. However, there were too many students in the Scarlet Heaven Academy. Not to say that there were people passing the heavenly tribulation every day, but there were indeed people passing the heavenly tribulation here every few days. Thus, there were people paying attention but only a few people nearby, and it didn't cause a commotion. Moreover, the heavenly tribulation had already formed, and the blazing white lightning danced in the sky. It was difficult for ordinary people to see Ling Han's appearance, so it naturally wouldn't attract attention. Besides, Ling Han had disintegrated himself and turned into a bloody mess. Who would recognize him? A few people thought that Ling Han was struck by the heavenly tribulation, and couldn't help but shake their heads. Who was this person? He was about to pass the heavenly tribulation, but he didn't prepare well. The heavenly tribulation had just started, and he definitely couldn't pass the rest. But what shocked them was that even though that idiot was almost like a pile of rotten meat, the heavenly tribulation didn't have any intention of stopping, and was still bombarding rapidly. Obviously, that person wasn't dead yet. You're not gonna die? They were all dumbfounded. Half a day's time passed in the blink of an eye, and Ling Han had already reformed his physical body. In the instant that the heavenly tribulation dissipated, he also wrapped a cloak around his body and disappeared. He had no choice. He was completely naked now. How could he face anyone? Hey, did you guys see that person's appearance? No, he ran too fast. How shocking. He was clearly blasted so badly by the heavenly tribulation. How did he survive? Could he have consumed the legendary spirit medicine? The 9 Deaths Reincarnation Divine Pill? A peerless divine pill that can be reborn after experiencing 9 deaths. Apart from a divine pill like this, what else could have such a heaven-defying effect? While these people were discussing, Ling Han had already returned to his new courtyard. He quickly took a bath, put on his clothes, took out some ingredients and barbecued them. He planned to reward his stomach, as he hadn't eaten or drunk in a few months. "You little brat, where have you been these past few days? You made me look for you for so long." The white cat appeared on the wall. Its nose was very sensitive, and when it smelled the fragrance of roasting meat, it came looking for him. This smell was too familiar. Ling Han couldn't help but smile and said, "Are you a cat or a dog? Why is your nose so sensitive?" "I am the descendant of the white tiger." The white cat meowed and pounced at Ling Han. "You can speak." Ling Han was surprised, and when the white cat attacked, he immediately discovered that its cultivation level had advanced into the mountain river tier. It was said that demonic beasts could take human form when they advanced into the mountain river tier, so it wasn't strange that this cat demon could speak the human language. Instead, it would be strange if it hadn't taken human form. "I am the descendant of the white tiger, so what's strange about me being able to speak?" The white cat continued to attack. However, it was true that it had advanced into the mountain river tier, and it was true that it was the descendant of the white tiger, but Ling Han's cultivation level was higher, and his strength was similarly freakish, so why would he be afraid of it? Ling Han casually parried, only defending and not attacking. He wanted to see how strong this cat demon was. It was really quite strong. The white cat's cultivation level was only in the early stage of the low extreme, but its battle prowess had shockingly surpassed 4 stars, which was very shocking. This king's bloodline has not been completely awakened, or it would be even more powerful," it said very proudly. "Is that so?" Ling Han smiled, and suddenly threw out a furry ball of thread. Meow! The big white cat instantly shook off Ling Han, and with a swoosh turned around and pounced. When its claws grabbed onto the ball of thread, it finally meowed in anger. "Damn brat, you dare to play tricks on me. Eat meat, forget it if you don't want to eat." Ling Han sat down. Since he knew the strength of the white cat, there was no point in continuing to fight. He could suppress it with a single finger now. The white cat walked over in displeasure, but after a few pieces of meat entered its stomach, it immediately beamed with joy, and began to address Ling Han as brother. It had not been long since it had advanced into the mountain river tier, and had only just learned how to speak. Thus it was especially talkative, and was practically a chatterbox, causing Ling Han to want to stuff its mouth, or perhaps plug his own ears. The white cat would freeload off him for food every day, and after 2 days Li Weiwei came to visit. "Damn blockhead, where have you been in this half a year?" Li Weiwei asked angrily the moment she entered. "Oh, cultivating in seclusion," Ling Han replied casually. "Shut your fucking hell, don't you know that I've been very humiliated by you?" Li Weiwei said angrily. "What have I done to you?" Ling Han asked with a smile. Li Weiwei sat down, picked up the food and started eating without holding back. "Tang Feng issued a challenge to you, but you were nowhere to be seen. He then spread the word that you were a coward, and did not dare to accept the challenge at all. I defended you, saying that you were not a coward, and that you would very soon come out to accept the challenge. And the result? You actually did not appear for half a year. And now everyone in the imperial capital is saying that you do not live up to your reputation, saying that you are a coward. I spoke up for you and now I'm being laughed at." Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "I've made you feel wronged, but there's nothing I can do about it. I'm in seclusion after all, so I don't know anything." In order to avoid being disturbed by others, he always stayed in the Black Tower, and it was impossible for others to find him. Also, Li Weiwei looked excited. Zhao Luan has already broken through to the consummate level, and has won 20 consecutive battles in the Iron Blood Stadium. He is hailed as the king tier of the current younger generation, and there is no one like him. Now everyone is discussing when you will be able to catch up to him, and then have a battle with him. There are even bets for this. Ling Han's eyes involuntarily lit up, and he asked, "What are the odds?" Within a year the odds are 1-10, 2 years 1-9, then 10 years later 1-2, 20 years later 2-3, 100 years later 10-12. In short, the later the time the lower the odds, Li Weiwei said. Ling Han broke into a smile and asked, Do you want to make a fortune? Chapter 985. Hearing the word make a fortune, Li Weiwei's beautiful eyes immediately lit up. Because Ling Han had been in seclusion previously, the business of selling ingredients could only be interrupted. With the size of her and Ji-Yun'er's spatial spirit tool, the ingredients they stored could only support them for a dozen or so days at most. Not long after they returned, they were all sold out. Because of this, the two girls were extremely regretful. Because Ling Han had not appeared for so long, they had also become greedy. How do we make a fortune? She hurriedly asked. There is going to be a great auction soon. If I have money, I can make father look at me differently. What auction? Ling Han asked. Oh, the imperial capital will hold an auction every once in a while, and this time just happens to be not long after the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm ends, so it naturally has to be more grand. There will be many good things, Li Weiwei said with some excitement. She paused, and her pretty face turned fierce. She said, You still haven't told me how to make a fortune. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, Isn't that simple? Aren't we betting on when Zhao Luan and I will fight? Li Weiwei came to her senses at this point, and immediately clapped her hands and jumped up. She said, We will go and place our bet first, and then you will challenge Zhao Luan. No, what if Zhao Luan ignores you? Ling Han snickered and said, Then it will depend on how powerful you, the daughter of the left minister, is. Can you change the bet to when I challenge Zhao Luan? Otherwise he would not have dragged Li Weiwei into this. Li Weiwei nodded repeatedly, looking as if she understood. But she soon revealed a worried expression and said, But what if Zhao Luan accepts the challenge, and you are killed by him? In any case it has nothing to do with me, so whatever. She answered herself and was indeed not worried at all. Ling Han laughed and said, Zhao Luan definitely cannot kill me, and if it were not for the fact that he has advanced into the consummate level, he could possibly be killed by me. This was not an exaggeration. His current physique had reached the level of level 3 godly metal, and even the consummate level would need some time to break through it. In addition, he also had the crimson ground locking net. With that, Zhao Luan's cultivation base would drop sharply. Back then, the Luo family had wanted to use this divine net to deal with the Lava Beast King, which meant that they were confident that they could kill the Beast King with the help of this divine net. Based on this, it could be deduced that the divine net's effect should be to weaken the Beast King by a small realm. Zhao Luan's cultivation had dropped by a small realm, and he was also trapped by the divine net, which affected his mobility. If he used the annihilating dragon star arrow, it was not impossible for him to kill Zhao Luan instantly. After all, back then, the Beast King was also at the early stage of the Great Perfection Realm, and it hadn't been caught in the net yet. Wasn't it almost killed by his arrow? However, could the only son of Great General Zhao be killed? Even if it's a life and death battle, isn't he afraid that this great general will become murderous and disregard the rules to kill? The stronger one was, the less restrictive the rules would be. Rules were originally imposed by the strong on the weak. Whether one obeyed them or not depended entirely on their mood. Unless Ling Han hid in the Black Tower after killing, but he wasn't alone. There was still the Great Ling Empire. Ling Han shook his head. If he couldn't kill Zhao Luan, he could only ruthlessly thrash him and teach him a deep lesson. And he was sure that as long as Zhao Luan wasn't killed or crippled, Great General Zhao wouldn't be so shameless as to personally make a move. More importantly, even if there was the crimson ground locking net, could it suppress Zhao Luan? Zhao Luan was a 4-star genius, and even if his cultivation level had been reduced by a small level, his battle prowess could still reach the early stage of the Great Perfection Realm. And what about Ling Han? He was presently in the early stage of the medium extreme, and was behind by a whole small level. Furthermore, he could only display battle prowess surpassing 5 stars at most. Otherwise, who knew what the consequences would be? One had to realize that he had ascended the island 3 times, and displayed potential that surpassed 4 stars, and was close to 5 stars. This was already enough to make 2 great majestic empires want to kill him in the cradle. That battle prowess of 6 stars would definitely make one unable to eat or sleep in peace. In your dreams. Li Weiwei shook her head and said, You still don't know, right? After Zhao Luan broke through, He was conferred the title of a 7th-rank military official by Her Imperial Majesty, and his name is listed on the totem. He can use power of the nation, and at least increase his battle prowess by 1 star. Ling Han frowned. In that case, it was practically impossible for him to win against Zhao Luan, unless everything went as he expected, and he could first use the Crimson Ground locking net to trap his opponent, and then use the annihilating Dragon Star arrow to severely wound him. Could he not shoot vital points like the head or the heart? Moreover, he only had this one chance. If he missed it, he could only admit defeat. Ling Han thought for a moment and then said, if I battle against Zhao Luan, there will definitely be new bets. I believe that almost all the bankers would not be stupid enough to directly set out 2 choices. Me or Zhao Luan, who will win? Instead, they would set out how many moves Zhao Luan can use to defeat me and make me surrender. Li Weiwei nodded repeatedly. Otherwise, the bankers would definitely suffer a huge loss. Ling Han broke into a grin and said, then we'll use Zhao Luan to earn a large sum first, and then trample him underfoot. Li Weiwei was astonished. Why was this stupid blockhead so confident? One had to know that he had only come from a small world, and did not have any background. On what basis did he think that Zhao Luan would not be able to kill him? However, it could not be denied that this kind of confidence added an additional enchanting quality to him. Then quickly take out the money. I'll go and place the bet right now. She was very quickly filled with the word earn a fortune, and even her small face was glowing. After entering into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, Ling Han had made a small fortune, which had all been obtained from confiscating possessions. Though he had spent a little on cultivation and breaking through to the medium extreme afterwards, added with his previous savings, he still had 4,000 true origin stones, and he handed them all to Li Weiwei. Li Weiwei left impatiently, and only returned a day later. She told him that everything was settled, and that he was only waiting for him to challenge Zhao Luan. Ling Han immediately wrote a letter of challenge, and pasted it on the main doors of the Northern Institution. It was naturally a challenge to Zhao Luan. As if the news had grown wings, it instantly spread throughout the Northern Institution, the Scarlet Heaven Academy, and the entire imperial capital. Everyone was discussing it spiritedly. They had not thought that this prodigy who had remained silent for more than half a year would finally appear again. Furthermore, he had appeared in such a high-profile manner, actually issuing a challenge to Zhao Luan. Who was Zhao Luan? The only son of the great General Zhao, and the strongest prodigy in 1,000 years. High hopes had been placed on him, and it was possible that he would reach the heavenly body tier. All of a sudden, everyone in the imperial capital was guessing whether Zhao Luan would accept the challenge or not. This junior brother is quite interesting. He has just ascended into the low extreme division, and he has already begun to challenge Zhao Luan. In a courtyard of the Western Institution, there was currently a young man in blue sitting comfortably, sipping tea. Behind him stood a woman in martial arts attire. Her figure was slender, and the leather martial arts attire completely outlined her sexy figure, causing one to drool. Furthermore, her appearance did not disappoint such a fine figure, and was filled with wild allure. Her black hair was tied into a large braid that hung straight down to her buttocks, causing that perfectly round and perky buttocks to appear even more impressive. This woman saw that there was not much water left in the teacup of the young man in blue, and hurriedly poured some for him. She said, "Young master, in your opinion, will Zhao Luan accept the challenge?" Chapter 986. Of course not. The young man in blue shook his head. His cultivation level is so much higher than Ling Han's, and even if he won he would lose face, so why bother? The tightly dressed beauty said, "Young master might not know, but Zhao Luan and Ling Han have a personal grudge." Oh. The young man in blue looked surprised. How was that possible? What strength and status did Zhao Luan have? To put it bluntly, Ling Han had no chance to offend Zhao Luan even if he wanted to. This young man in blue was called Sha Yuan, the third son of great General Sha Jing of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and also the youngest son. His talent in martial art was similarly astonishing, and he had already broken through to the consummate level of the Mountain River tier 1,000 years ago, and now had already reached the peak stage. Logically speaking, he should have left the academy, but the son of great General Shah insisted on staying in the academy, so how could you chase him away? For the descendants of nobles, the Scarlet Heaven Academy was not just a place for cultivation. In truth, their own family's conditions were much better, and they came to the academy to network and accumulate their own strength. Those who could enter the academy were all geniuses. For example, Zhao Luan had 3 followers, and all of them were 2-star geniuses, and it was even said that they might be 3-star geniuses. Who wouldn't want to recruit such geniuses? The reason why the academy was divided into 4 branches and viewed each other with animosity was partly because they didn't want the descendants of certain nobles to extend their hands too far. This was an artificial restriction, and at most they could only cause trouble in one branch. The tightly dressed beauty naturally wouldn't wait for the other to ask, and hurriedly said, "That's because of Shui Yanyu. It's said that she and Ling Han are engaged in marriage." Her name was Lu Ying, and she was chosen from among the orphans by great General Shah. Her talent in martial art was extraordinary, and she was both Sha Yuan's childhood playmate, sparring partner and death guard. There were a total of 4 death guards like her, and they were collectively known as the 4 leopards. Sha Yuan was startled for a moment, and then suddenly laughed loudly, almost to the point of tears. Zhao Luan, aren't you very proud? How come you can't even protect your own woman?" Although the 7 great generals stood side by side, the relationship between them was definitely not very good. Furthermore, he and Zhao Luan were both top-notch young masters of the imperial capital, and they had often fought against each other. Both of them wanted to vie for the title of the imperial capital's first young master. Thus, when he learned that Zhao Luan had suffered such a great loss, Sha Yuan naturally laughed heartily. "Lu Ying, you won't betray me, right?" Sha Yuan suddenly asked. Lu Ying's heart trembled, and he hurriedly knelt down and said, "This subordinate will never betray young lord." Sha Yuan glanced at her and said, "Investigate this person for this young master. This young master is very interested in him." "Yes." Lu Ying stood up and left. "You won't or you don't dare." Sha Yuan revealed an unfathomable smile. Tang Feng almost went mad from anger. Ling Han had ignored his challenge, causing him to look down on him as a coward. He had also spread the word that Ling Han was as cowardly as a mouse, yet Ling Han had ignored him and directly challenged Zhao Luan. Was he treating him as nothing? He wanted nothing more than to tear Ling Han into a million pieces because this challenge from Ling Han had instantly suppressed his limelight. Zhao Luan didn't respond to Ling Han's challenge. Instead, it was his follower, Bai Yuanxi, who spoke up and expressed his disdain towards Ling Han's challenge. He said that Ling Han was only an ugly person making trouble, so how could he cooperate with Zhao Luan? If Ling Han wanted to fight, that was fine. He would accompany him. However, the prerequisite was that it had to be a battle to the death. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes landed on Ling Han again. How was he going to respond? One had to realize that although Bai Yuanxi wasn't as dazzling as Zhao Luan, he was still an elite in the high extreme of the mountain river tier. Moreover, he was a prodigy who was above 2 stars and close to 3 stars. If he fought to the death with him, there was almost a 90% chance that Ling Han would be insta-killed. Did he dare or not? Ling Han immediately gave a direct response. The entire imperial capital was in an uproar. Ling Han was currently the most popular newcomer, and Bai Yuanxi's personal strength and status as Zhao Luan's follower both made him the center of attention. The two of them were going to fight to the death, so it was destined to attract countless gazes. Unsurprisingly, there were also bets about the outcome of the battle between the two of them. How about it? What are the odds? Ling Han was clearly slightly excited. Li Weiwei chuckled and said, "If you win, the odds are 100. Ling Han's lips twitched. Although he knew that the higher the odds, the more he would earn, he had never imagined that the odds would be so ridiculous as 100. Just how bad was he? There are no odds for Bai Yuanxi to win, only odds for you to be defeated within a few moves. 1 move 10-11, 2 moves 10-12, 3 moves 10-13. Li Weiwei began to introduce the odds. It was clear that the dealer was also very bad for Ling Han. Ling Han had been able to survive 100 moves, and the odds had actually reached an exaggerated level of 110. Blockhead, what are we going to bet next? Li Weiwei's eyes lit up. She had made a huge profit just now. How much did you earn? Ling Han couldn't help but ask. 4,000 for you and 3,000 each for Sister Yun. That's a total of 100,000. Li Weiwei said excitedly. The two of them together had earned more than him. Ling Han sighed and said, of course we're going to bet everything on me winning. Hey, don't tell me you're jealous that Sister Yun and I earn more than you, so you want to trick us? Li Weiwei looked suspiciously at Ling Han. Am I that kind of person? Ling Han shook his head. Don't worry. If you bet on me winning, the odds are 1/100. I'll guarantee that you'll make a huge profit. Besides, didn't I also bet my 4,000? That's true. Li Weiwei nodded, and then asked curiously, why are you so confident? Of course it's my strength. Ling Han laughed. Zhao Luan hadn't accepted the challenge, which was within Ling Han's expectations. In any case, he had only issued the challenge to win money. He hadn't expected Bai Yuanxi to respond, allowing him to earn another sum. I'll believe you this time. However, if you cause Sister Yun and I to lose money, we won't forgive you. Li Weiwei said fiercely. Don't worry, this will be my dowry to you. I won't be able to pay you back, Ling Han said with a smile. Now their capital of 10,000 had increased tenfold, reaching more than 100,000. If they had to win with the odds of 100, that would be an astronomical figure of 10 million. It was even more profitable than alchemy. Unfortunately, this was because the information they had was not equal. If they could understand him as well as Ling Han did, they would probably only offer tenfold odds at most. Ling Han was filled with anticipation. After receiving the wager, he could participate in the large-scale auction. He wanted to see what good things would be sold in the auction of the immortal realm. There were 3 days of buffer time before the day of the battle, but Shui Yinyu didn't appear, causing Ling Han to feel slightly disappointed. In these 3 days he refined the last Flame Mountain River Stone, completely stabilizing his cultivation level in the medium extreme. At the same time, the might of his divine patterns of flame had also improved. After all, he had a total of 7 divine patterns, which far surpassed the divine patterns of gravity. More refreshing reading on mobile. Chapter 988. Zhao Luan, when did your patience become so bad? Sha Yuan laughed loudly and said, you'll know when you get down there. Zhao Luan humphed. He was a few hundred years younger than Sha Yuan, so he had only just advanced to the consummate level, while Sha Yuan was already at the peak stage of the consummate level. There was a difference of 3 subminor levels between them. If they really fought, he was confident that he had secret techniques, so he didn't need to fear Sha Yuan. However, Sha Yuan naturally didn't need to fear him either. Thus he could only humph when Sha Yuan rebutted him like this. Otherwise, with his narrow-mindedness, it would be strange if he didn't kill Sha Yuan. Ling Han arrived at the platform halfway up the mountain. Just over half a year ago, he had battled with Luo Ba here. He hadn't thought that he would encounter a battle to the death so soon. Bai Yuanxi was already waiting for him on the platform. He sat cross-legged on the ground like a stone statue, and didn't look impatient at all. For experts like them, not to mention a few hours, they could even maintain their state of mind for a few days. Ling Han stopped, and stood 30 meters away from Bai Yuanxi. You're here. Bai Yuanxi opened his eyes, and it was as if a bolt of lightning had instantly flashed through the clear sky. As expected of an elite in the high extreme, just a single gaze was so terrifying. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, I'm here. You've broken through to the medium extreme so quickly. That's rare and commendable, Bai Yuanxi continued. It's just so. Bai Yuanxi paused for a moment, and then said, my young master still lacks a dog. If you obediently submit, I can still spare your life. Ling Han laughed coldly and said, it's your own business if you're willing to be a dog, but you still want to drag others down with you? You're really despicable to the bone. Impudence. Bai Yuanxi roared. Quang. Blood flowed from the ears of many people, shocking them. The might of his roar was actually so terrifying. He stared coldly at Ling Han and said, since you're so stubborn, then die. Ling Han pointed a finger at him and said, I originally wanted to spare your life, but since that's the case, there's no need for me to show mercy. Boastful talk. Bai Yuanxi leaped forward. He didn't even draw his weapon. Instead, he stretched out his right hand, and 9 intertwined divine patterns appeared. He then pressed his palm towards Ling Han. Since his strength had completely surpassed them, all he had to do was crush them head-on. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Xiu. He also leaped toward Bai Yuanxi. The two of them were pouncing toward each other, so they naturally clashed immediately. Pung! Bai Yuanxi's palm struck Ling Han's chest. Divine light surged and ripples formed in the air. His face was filled with arrogance. Ling Han would definitely be torn to pieces if he was hit head-on. But he immediately revealed a look of astonishment, because not only was Ling Han completely fine, he even smiled at him. To hell with it, he didn't have the time to think about why Ling Han wasn't injured. He immediately wanted to retreat. This was too strange. Right at this moment, Ling Han raised his hand and tossed out a net. Originally, with Bai Yuanxi's abilities, he wouldn't fall for this net at all. However, the two of them were so close to each other. Moreover, this was after his attack. Bai Yuanxi thought that he could kill Ling Han. The large net spread out, instantly trapping him. Although Bai Yuanxi was surprised, he didn't panic in the slightest. He had followed Zhao Luan to many ancient sites and dangerous places, and had experienced far too many dangers. Staying calm in the face of danger was the most basic quality. Otherwise, how could he have the right to follow Zhao Luan? Chung! He drew his sword, and sword light instantly rang out like a song. Goodbye! Ling Han drew his bow, and directly unleashed the ultimate arrow. He didn't want to give Bai Yuanxi any chance to escape. He wanted to slice off one of Zhao Lun's claws. At this moment, all of the hair on Bai Yuanxi's body stood on end. A powerful sense of danger welled up in his heart. He hurriedly channeled his full power, yet to his shock, he discovered that his origin power had actually been suppressed. He could only unleash the power of the middle stage of the medium extreme at most. What kind of net was this? This thought flashed through his mind. However, it was at this moment that the tip of the arrow was already pointed at his chest. It was like a great killing weapon that had been nurtured by heaven and earth, causing his palms to involuntarily sweat. Ling Han released his grip, and the arrow transformed into a streak of light. Pooh! The arrow pierced through Bai Yuanxi's body without any suspense, forcibly piercing through his head. The arrow flew out, and only a few drops of blood remained on the tip of its tail. Pa! Bai Yuanxi's entire head exploded. Insta-kill. A deathly silence descended upon the surroundings. Who would have thought that Ling Han would actually be able to defeat Bai Yuanxi? Moreover, not only had he won, but he had also done so in an inconceivable insta-kill. If their positions had been switched, no one would have thought that it was strange. After all, Bai Yuanxi possessed such strength. Now, however, everyone's mouths were wide open. They were completely unable to believe or accept this. Indeed, there were prodigies who could defeat those at a higher cultivation level. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such things as 1-star geniuses and 2-star geniuses. However, no matter what, the gap between Ling Han and Bai Yuanxi's cultivation level was clear for all to see. There was a whole 5 sub-minor levels between them. Moreover, Bai Yuanxi himself was close to a 3-star genius, so the gap between the two of them was at least 7 stars. Surpassing 7 stars and insta-killing him with a single strike? If they didn't believe it, who could believe it? On the mountain peak, Zhao Luan's expression instantly became extremely ugly. A person like him naturally wouldn't care about Bai Yuanxi's life or death. After all, Bai Yuanxi was merely a dog that worked for him. If he died, he could just find another one. How could he be afraid that no one would side with him? The problem was, even if you wanted to beat a dog, you had to first find its master. Now that his dog had been shot to death in front of him, how could he accept this? I know. That's the Crimson Ground Locking Net. What Crimson Ground Locking Net? The Crimson Ground Locking Net. Anyone who is trapped by it will be suppressed by a minor level. No wonder. The spectators all nodded in agreement. If Bai Yuanxi's cultivation level was suppressed by a minor level, then his peak battle prowess would only be at the peak stage of the medium extreme. At that time, insta-killing by Ling Han would become a possibility. Humph! Zhao Luan shot down from the mountain peak and stood beside Bai Yuanxi. He stared at Ling Han and coldly said, "You killed him. If there's nothing wrong with your eyes, you should have seen it clearly." Ling Han was completely exhausted after shooting that arrow, yet his aura wasn't the slightest bit inferior to Ling Han's. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. That was Zhao Luan, the #1 genius of the Scarlet Heaven Academy, and the only son of great General Zhao. Zhao Luan's expression darkened and he coldly said, "Since you've killed my man, then there's nothing more to say. Kneel and kill yourself." So domineering. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Young Master Zhao, are you stupid? Can't you kill your man in a fair battle? I'll kill him fair and square. I'll have a clear conscience even in front of the Empress." "Humph, you killed my man, so you must die." Zhao Luan raised an eyebrow and exuded a terrifying aura. "Stupid bird." Ling Han sneered and was just about to withdraw the crimson ground locking net and leave. Shua. Zhao Luan moved and slapped at Ling Han. He was at the consummate level and furthermore he was a 4-star genius. How terrifying was this? Moreover, Ling Han was currently at his weakest. Pung! Ling Han was instantly struck, and he was sent flying by the palm strike. "He's not dead." Zhao Luan looked at Ling Han, who had blood trickling down the corner of his mouth, and couldn't help but look astonished. Cell phone reading. Chapter 989. Although that palm strike just now wasn't his full power, it definitely wasn't something that a medium-extreme cultivator could withstand. When people talked about how many stars a prodigy had, they were referring to the destructive power of their battle prowess, and not their defense. Thus, even if Ling Han was a legendary 5-star genius, his defense was only at the early stage of the medium extreme. How could he take a direct hit from Bai Yuanxi and only suffer a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth? Zhao Luan immediately recalled that Ling Han had also taken a blow from Bai Yuanxi before, but hadn't been injured in the slightest. However, Ling Han had instantly killed Bai Yuanxi afterward. That was too shocking and no one thought about the previous scene in detail. Could it be that this guy's body is made of godly metal? Zhao Luan was astonished, but his hands didn't stop moving. He immediately shot out another palm strike, pressing down on Ling Han. Although that palm strike just now hadn't killed Ling Han, it had wounded him. It was clear that no matter how strong his physique was, it wasn't invincible. Ling Han retreated. With so many people watching, he definitely wouldn't expose the secret of his spatial god tool unless he encountered a situation where he would definitely die. However, he had just shot the ultimate arrow and needed some time to recover his mobility. Putting aside the fact that his opponent was Zhao Luan, even if a shattering void tier cultivator attacked, he wouldn't be able to dodge. "Since I've already made my move, how can you escape?" Zhao Luan smirked coldly and pressed his palm onto Ling Han's chest. Pooh! Ling Han was once again sent flying. He felt as if his body was boiling, and it was incredibly uncomfortable. However, to his pleasant surprise, both his origin power and stamina were rapidly recovering. At most 30 minutes, he would be able to recover to his peak condition. The recovery of stamina was within expectations, but why could his origin power also recover so quickly? This was a change that only appeared after he advanced to the medium extreme. Wait, he had also recultivated the Universal 8 Desolation technique. Could it be that this cultivation technique still had some effect? Previously, though he had also been at the Mountain River tier, he hadn't cultivated any immortal level cultivation techniques. Would it also be affected? Ling Han couldn't be sure because ever since he shot that arrow in the flame cave, he had changed too much. As a result, he couldn't determine which one was the main cause, or if all of them were added together to cause such a change. Pung! He landed on the ground, and blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth again. He felt his godly bones cracking as if they were about to break. Zhao Luan was not an ordinary consummate level cultivator. His battle prowess surpassed 4 stars, and even if Ling Han's physique was as tough as level 3 godly metal, he still suffered considerable damage. If it was continuously bombarded, it would still be destroyed. However, the spectators were all scared shitless. This guy was only in the medium extreme, yet he had only bled a little after taking 2 blows from Zhao Luan. This was too exaggerated. Zhao Luan's gaze was cold as he strode towards Ling Han. So what if his physique was strong? Could it stop him from killing someone? Zhao Luan, you've gone too far. Li Weiwei stepped out bravely. That's my man. You're not allowed to touch a single hair on him. Zhao Luan didn't stop and said, Fourth young miss, if this person was your husband, then I, Zhao Luan, would give you face. However, he is only your dog, and my man was killed by him, so he naturally has to pay with his life. Bullshit. Li Weiwei was enraged. She had also been pampered since childhood, so when had she ever been disrespected? She instantly spat out a string of profanities. She pointed angrily at Zhao Luan and shouted, it was clearly a fair duel, and the surnamed Bai is even a minor level higher than Ling Han. If anyone is talking about fairness, it is Ling Han. I don't care. I only know that my man was killed by this dog. If I don't kill him in revenge, it will disappoint the hearts of my followers. Zhao Luan was also unreasonable, and made use of this reason. For a descendant of a noble like him, as long as he had an excuse to kill Ling Han, he would be able to turn a big matter into a small one, and escape the punishment of the Academy and the Imperial Court. Then, he could keep a low profile for 2 or 3 years and naturally he would be able to strut out and do whatever he wanted. Li Weiwei was so angry that she cried out, I don't care. If you want to kill him, you'll have to step over my dead body first. Fourth young Miss Li, you think too highly of yourself. Zhao Luan pointed at Li Weiwei. Pooh, a ray of light immediately entered her body, causing her to be unable to move or open her mouth. She was completely reduced to a decoration. Zhao Luan smiled and said to Ling Han, you think that just because this is the academy I won't dare to kill you? You're wrong. It's just that I've never placed you in my eyes. But you're not willing to be my dog, and you even killed my man. That's just seeking your own death. Surnamed Zhao, you've only cultivated a few more years than me. If we were at the same age or at the same cultivation level, I would be able to suppress you with a single hand, said Ling Han disdainfully. Hiss, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. If Ling Han had knelt down and begged for mercy at this moment, perhaps Zhao Luan would have spared him. After all, he had only been humiliated. But Ling Han actually dared to provoke him like this. That was really driving himself to a dead end. But thinking about it again, Ling Han's words were actually very reasonable. What cultivation level had Zhao Luan had when he was in his 20s? Indeed, he was very freakish. He had reached the consummate level of Shattering Void tier with battle prowess of 20 stars in his 20s, and Mountain River tier had not been able to trap him for long. However, at least until he was 50 years old, he was still only in the low extreme. In comparison, the gap between the two of them was very obvious. Zhao Luan smirked coldly, and said, what status do you have to compare yourself with me? Pung. He moved again and sent Ling Han flying. From the first time Zhao Luan had made his move until now, quite a while had passed. If his first strike was said to have taken people by surprise, then so much time had passed and the academy should have already known, right? But not a single elder had appeared. Even if Zhao Luan was now very impressive, any Sun Moon tier cultivator would be able to easily suppress him. Even 5-star geniuses could not possibly surpass the barrier of a major cultivation level. Was this the academy's tacit approval? The son of the great General Zhao was really capable of covering the sky with one hand. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. That was because the person Zhao Luan wanted to kill today was Ling Han, but what if it was them tomorrow? They were obviously being watched by tens of thousands of people, yet not a single person extended a helping hand. What kind of terror was that? Stop! Another shout rang out, and they saw a beautiful woman shoot over. Guling Yu. No way, how did she get involved with Ling Han as well? Hiss, among the 3 beauties of the imperial capital, there are actually 2 beauties standing out for him. This guy's luck with women is really good. Everyone immediately recognized that this was Guling Yu, one of the 3 great beauties of the imperial capital. Moreover, she was also a new student of the Alchemy institution. Zhao Luan's expression was incredibly dark. Even if Guling Yu was a disciple of the Alchemy institution, he would not take her to heart at all. However, what made him displeased was that there were actually so many beauties that were willing to stand out for Ling Han. Was Shui Yinyu blind? He was the only son of the great General Zhao, and his own talent in martial art was astonishing. He had always been praised as the #1 genius in 1,000 years, and his looks were even ridiculously handsome. But why were there no top-notch beauties throwing themselves at him? He was actually inferior to an ant from a small world. This caused him to be unable to restrain his fury, and his killing intent blazed wildly. Chapter 990. If it could be said that Zhao Luan had only wanted to kill Ling Han previously for the sake of face, then from this moment on, Zhao Luan finally took Ling Han seriously, viewing him as an enemy that had to be eliminated quickly. Towards enemies, he naturally had to be as merciless as the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Zhao Luan's expression was cold, and he pointed a finger. Gu Lingyu also turned into a stone statue, unable to move. No wonder you're so arrogant, daring to oppose me. So it turns out that you're living off a woman. Zhao Luan closed in and struck out another palm strike, pressing down towards Ling Han. But I'll let you know that the person I want to kill has never escaped. Pung! The palm strike landed, causing the ground to tremble slightly, but Ling Han disappeared from the ground. And Zhao Luan showed a sliver of surprise because Ling Han had pushed the ground with his palm just then, and used this force to escape his attack. Ling Han moved his limbs, and channeled the indestructible heaven's scroll. The wounds on his body healed at a visible rate. His eyes shone and he said, Zhao Luan, you're not qualified to cover the sky with one hand. After such a long time, he had already recovered some of his power. Is that so? Zhao Luan immediately put away this bit of surprise. As long as Ling Han was still in the medium extreme, he could easily suppress him. He moved, and his origin power condensed into a giant palm that descended from the sky, striking out towards Ling Han. This palm was not only extraordinarily fast, but also extraordinarily large, and could not be dodged at all. Ling Han mustered all his strength and punched out towards the sky, but the difference in power was too great. He was mercilessly knocked down, and another mouthful of blood spurted out. But amidst everyone's shocked gazes, he immediately crawled back up, his fighting spirit soaring. Was this guy an unkillable god of war? Everyone was stunned speechless. At first, the consummate level could crush a medium extreme cultivator, and the gap of a whole 8 stars and could be resolved with a single move. But Ling Han stood up again and again, and this refreshed everyone's understanding. So, the medium extreme could also be this strong. What kind of secret art did this ant from the small world cultivate? Or what kind of secret treasure did he obtain? Why is his combat strength so strong and his physique so tyrannical? Even Zhao Luan became greedy. He realized that he had underestimated the people of this small world. He thought that this small world was primitive and backward, so it was impossible for secret treasures to appear. He was wrong. He absolutely did not believe that anyone could be born like this. This must have been some kind of inheritance that Ling Han had obtained, a shocking inheritance. He's gonna die. Zhao Luan finally unleashed his true power. He slammed out with his palm again, and divine patterns flickered, interweaving with a terrifying might. Ling Han let out a loud roar, activated the earth overturning seal, and activated the Eye of Truth, striking back at his opponent. Bam! In just one clash, he was once again sent flying by the shockwave. Putting aside the fact that Zhao Luan was a 4-star genius, even if he wasn't, the gap of 8 subminor levels was not something that Ling Han could make up for. However, his physique was far too powerful. Taking this attack head-on only caused a few cracks to appear on his skin, yet his godly bones were still completely unscathed. This made things much easier. He channeled the indestructible heaven's scroll, and his wounds instantly healed at a rapid pace. Everyone was shocked. They had never seen anyone with such a strong physique before. So be it if his physique was strong, but the problem was that even his recovery ability was so freakish. What could they do then? Unless they could severely wound Ling Han with a single strike, if it was only a light injury, he could completely recover over and over again. It would be useless no matter how exhausted they were. Ha 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 ha. Amidst a long laugh, a figure leaped down from the peak of the mountain, and just happened to stand between Ling Han and Zhao Luan. Sha Yuan. With a schwa, he opened his folding fan, fanned himself twice and said, Zhao Luan, where's my wager? Zhao Luan instantly looked furious and said, "Could it be that I would blame you? That's not necessarily the case. As long as it doesn't enter your pocket, you won't be able to rest easy," Sha Yuan said with a smile. "Even blood brothers have to settle their debts clearly. Quickly go and bring it over." Zhao Luan knew that Sha Yuan was deliberately interfering to protect Ling Han, but how could he allow him to do as he wished? He said coldly, "Sha Yuan, don't think that I don't know what you're planning." "What am I planning?" Sha Yuan asked with a smile. Zhao Luan took a deep breath and said, "I'll give you 2 pieces of white cloud star metal, and you can stay out of today's matter." Sha Yuan's strength and status were not inferior to his. If Sha Yuan was determined to stir up trouble, it would really be difficult for him to deal with him. Thus, he didn't mind giving away another piece of white cloud star metal to prevent Sha Yuan from interfering. 2 pieces of white cloud star metal. Sha Yuan couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. If it was just 1 piece of white cloud star metal, then it could only be added to a god tool to increase the quality of the god tool. However, if there were 2 pieces, then it would be enough to forge a complete weapon. That was a level 7 god tool. Just thinking about it made his heart move. It should be known that from level 5 onwards, the amount of godly metal was pitifully small. He only thought about it for a moment before immediately making a decision. He said fine. After saying this, he retreated to the side, acting as if this matter had nothing to do with him. Zhao Luan's gaze once again landed on Ling Han. This guy had caused him to lose another piece of white cloud star metal, causing his killing intent to burn even more intensely. At the same time, his desire to obtain that inconceivably powerful secret from Ling Han grew even stronger. Ling Han glanced at Sha Yuan, and the favorable impression he had of this person naturally vanished into thin air. He drew out his divine sword and clenched his left hand into a palm. He was going to defend his dignity. "Meow! Who dares to touch even my cat slave?" The large white cat appeared, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws at Zhao Luan. "Headmaster Fu's beast pet?" Zhao Luan was astonished. The lowly commoners of this small world were truly mysterious. In just a short few days, they had actually managed to form connections with the Left Minister, Headmaster Fu, and the Alchemy Institution. "Pay! Only trash like humans can be my cat slave," the large white cat said in an extremely haughty manner. "Heh, for the sake of Lord Fu, I'll spare your life." Zhao Luan tapped out with his finger again, intending to restrain the white cat. Xiao! The white cat's figure flashed, its speed incredibly fast. Zhao Luan was astonished. This kind of speed was slightly beyond his expectations. However, that was all. After all, his cultivation level was still at the low extreme. In just 3 moves, the large white cat had been subdued by Zhao Luan. Zhao Luan had also controlled his strength. He had only immobilized the large white cat, and hadn't injured it. "Detestable human, hurry up and release me!" The large white cat bawled loudly, appearing to be unable to restrain his fury. Everyone was astonished. The Left Minister and Headmaster Fu were 2 elites of the heavenly body tier. Yet Ling Han was actually able to form good relations with these 2 great forces at the same time. This was truly unimaginable. Even Zhao Luan felt slightly weak. If it wasn't for the fact that Sha Yuan was still swayed by benefits, then it would mean that there were 3 great forces of the heavenly body tier that were acting on behalf of Ling Han. However, when he thought of the supreme inheritance that Ling Han might possess, he immediately strengthened his resolve. He definitely had to succeed. Die! He waved a palm at Ling Han. "You're the one who's going to die." Ling Han roared in fury. His sword and palm moved simultaneously, and he began his counterattack. Both were the best ways to neutralize each other. "In a battle of equals, I will still suppress you." Zhao Luan charged over, his fist shooting out. First technique of the broken gold warring Buddha fist. Heavy wave rises and swirls. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "In a battle of equals, I have never met an opponent that can match me. You will not be an exception." He used the earth overturning seal and charged toward Ling Han. Pung! In the first collision, Ling Han stood proudly and unmoving, yet Zhao Luan stumbled back a dozen or so steps. The blood in his body churned, and his face alternated between red and white. Gasp, in a battle of equals, Zhao Luan is actually not Ling Han's match. The whole crowd erupted. Putting aside Zhao Luan's character, his talent was indeed the highest in the Chaotic Star's majestic empire in the last 1,000 years. In fact, he had even shown great potential, and had a chance of becoming an elite of the heavenly body tier in the future. However, such a domineering figure had actually fallen into a disadvantageous position in a battle of the same level. This Ling Han's power is definitely not as simple as the early stage of the medium extreme. He has probably reached the peak stage. That's right. This palm technique of his is very ordinary, yet it can explode with such terrifying battle prowess. It can only be because his power far exceeds his cultivation level, and thus compensates for his battle prowess. Gasp, going by this logic, if he cultivates a high-level secret technique, his battle prowess will be even stronger. He can become a 5-star genius. Everyone exclaimed in astonishment. Could it be that they were really going to witness the birth of a 5-star genius? Damn it, damn it. Zhao Luan roared, and made a comeback. Broken Gold Warring Buddha Fist, second technique. Rising wave of mountains and rivers. Boom. The power of this punch suddenly increased explosively by 3 times. Ling Han once again shot out an earth-overturning seal. Both of them were channeling metal element cultivation techniques, and as golden light intertwined, it was as if they had become golden gods of war. However, after this clash, both of them were sent flying backwards. They were now evenly matched. Ha 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 ha. Zhao Luan laughed loudly and said, "Your strength is only a so-so. I still have an even more powerful third technique that I have yet to use." Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "You think too highly of yourself, and are too good at deceiving yourself. Who said that my strength is only so-so? Is that so?" Zhao Luan charged over again, still using the second technique of the Broken Gold Warring Buddha Fist. The two of them clashed, golden light intertwining, and it was incredibly terrifying. Very few people noticed that after each clash, a sliver of gold would appear in Zhao Luan's eyes. After more than 10 exchanges, his eyes had actually become completely golden. Broken Gold Warring Buddha Fist. Rising wave of 9 layer of waves, piercing sun and moon. He let out a loud roar, and his body rapidly expanded, turning into a golden giant that was at least 10 feet tall. He finally struck out with his most powerful punch, and his battle prowess had increased by a whole 9 times. It wasn't that he had been lenient earlier, but rather that the eruption of the third technique required both his physique and physique to keep up. Thus, he had to first enter the state of a golden body of 30 feet, and this required time. However, once he completed the transformation to the golden body, this attack was earth-shattering. Boom, a huge golden fist smashed down from the sky. There was not a hint of finesse, and it was a complete suppression of brute force. Ling Han still struck out with his palm, but he only used the earth-overturning seal. Pung! The fist and palm were lower, and their sizes were completely different. The golden fist crushed all the way, pushing Ling Han back continuously. If it weren't for the fact that the rocks here were extremely sturdy, he would definitely have left 2 footprints on the ground. Ha 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 ha. Zhao Luan laughed loudly, and brandished his 2 huge fists, crazily smashing them towards Ling Han. The Broken Gold Warring Buddha Fist had a total of 3 techniques, but it wasn't a difference in technique, but rather the method of exerting force. The third technique consumed a lot of energy, and it also had a considerable side effect. After all, one had to erupt with battle prowess by 9 times. However, in the process of this eruption, one could practically kill gods and Buddhas in their way. In the same cultivation realm, who could be a match for him? Chapter 993. You dare to fight with me for the title of number 1 genius? You're still far from it. Zhao Luan laughed loudly. His golden body was now 10 meters tall, and his voice was like a great bell that was deafening. Both of his fists struck out continuously, like a barrage of arrows, one punch after another, as if he would never stop. Everyone was astonished by Zhao Luan's might. as expected of the number one genius in 1,000 years. This was really too ferocious. In a battle of the same cultivation level, even if it was the peak stage of the medium extreme, how many people would be able to withstand such a frenzied bombardment? Ling Han snorted and activated the divine runes of gravity. Zhao Luan instantly felt as if he had sunk into a swamp. He took a step forward but couldn't lift his back foot. His entire person staggered. Divine gravity runes. Zhao Luan humphed. He had also obtained a gravitational mountain river stone before, so he naturally knew what was going on. He also activated the divine patterns of gravity to counteract the gravitational force. Then he condensed a giant golden fist and punched toward Ling Han. Rumble. This punch was too frightening. It compressed the air to the point of forming layers of ripples. Ling Han was fearless as he unleashed his 7 kills subduing soul art. Zhao Luan suddenly felt as if his brain had been pierced by a needle, and the pain made him want to groan. He was very experienced and immediately realized that he had been hit by Ling Han's spiritual attack. He quickly stabilized his divine consciousness. However, it was in this moment of sluggishness that his fist suddenly lost its aim. Ling Han seized the opportunity to grab his wrist and fling him away. Bam! His body was large, so his fall was heavy. When he smashed into the ground, his expression became ugly and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Zhao Luan is injured. In a battle of the same realm, someone had actually managed to injure Zhao Luan. This was definitely super big news. Zhao Luan had always been synonymous with being invincible among his peers, but now, he had been beaten to the point of vomiting blood. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, who would have believed it? Arg! Zhao Luan let out a furious howl, and the blood vessels on his golden body bulged like hundreds of golden snakes, giving off a malevolent aura. He slammed his hands on the ground, and his whole body immediately bounced up, charging toward Ling Han again. Boom! A fist surged over, and it was as if a divine mountain was pressing down. I said that if we were at the same level, I could suppress you with a single hand. Ling Han placed his left hand behind his back, while his right palm pressed toward Zhao Luan. However, this was not the main point. He used the 7 kills subduing soul technique and launched a mental attack at Zhao Luan. Immortals cultivated their souls. Previously, although Ling Han had used mountain river stones to raise his power to the immortal level, his divine sense still remained at the same level because he didn't have the corresponding comprehension of cultivation level. However, after drinking the reincarnation tea, his divine sense had become far stronger than an ordinary shattering void tier cultivator's, and added with the tempering of the second layer of the indestructible heaven scroll, his divine sense was not only strong, but also incredibly stable. It was not the slightest bit weaker than an ordinary mountain river tier cultivator's. When he truly advanced into the mountain river tier, the strength of his divine sense naturally also received a qualitative increase, far surpassing that of ordinary cultivators at the medium extreme. It was definitely comparable to those at the high extreme, or even the consummate level. Therefore, even though Zhao Luan's divine sense was actually at the great perfection level, he was still unable to withstand his spiritual attacks, and continued to attack. Although he was only slightly affected each time, in a battle between experts, this slight effect was enough to determine the outcome of the battle. Pung pung pung. Although Zhao Luan's punches were filled with power, every punch missed, so what was the point? He would either be smashed painfully by Ling Han, or be continuously struck by his palms. Quang quang quang. A crisp sound rang out from his golden body, as if his body had really turned into metal. Who would have thought that aside from being able to retaliate a few times in the beginning, Zhao Luan, the number one prodigy, would become a one-sided beatdown later on. Zhao Luan was unable to restrain his fury. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, this was practically a great humiliation. His eyes suddenly turned cold, and a powerful aura suddenly exuded from his body. It was incredibly ancient, and filled with majesty. Power of the nation. Many people blurted out. Not long ago, Zhao Luan had just received an imperial title from the Empress, becoming a 7th-rank military general, and could use the power of the nation. Although the power of the nation he could use could not compare to that of the left minister, the 7 generals, and the others, his cultivation level was also low. Even if he was allowed to use it, how much power of the nation could he use? With the support of the power of the nation, Zhao Luan's declining momentum instantly disappeared. His golden body once again shone brightly, and it was even more resplendent than before. Pung 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 pung. He seized the opportunity to counterattack, and his attacks forced Ling Han to retreat step by step. Ling Han was slightly astonished. With the support of the power of the nation, even Zhao Luan's divine sense seemed to have a layer of protection. His 7 kills subduing soul technique actually bounced back forcefully, and was completely ineffective. Die! Zhao Luan's eyes were bloodshot, and his tall figure cast a large shadow over the crowd. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "You've only increased your battle prowess by 1 star, and you have the power of the nation to protect your divine sense. It's not like you have an indestructible body, so what's there to be proud of?" He pulled away from Ling Han, used his body as a bow, and his origin power as an arrow and shot out. Zhao Luan was astonished. Previously, Bai Yuanxi had been insta-killed by this very arrow. Although the might of this arrow was much weaker in comparison, his battle prowess had similarly dropped, so he definitely could not be careless. He raised his hand with great difficulty. Pooh! This arrow shot into his arm. So what if he had a golden body? It was still pierced through by the arrow. At this moment, the arrow transformed into specks of origin power and disappeared. Fresh blood flowed out, and Zhao Luan's face was ashen. He had used the power of the nation to support his body, and he had thought that victory was within his grasp. He had not expected that Ling Han would immediately give him a resounding slap to the face. This was not the ultimate arrow, as Ling Han had not lost any strength after shooting this arrow. He immediately drew his bow again and shot a second arrow. Puteng piuteng. Every time Ling Han shot an arrow, Zhao Luan would retreat a step. His body was riddled with arrow holes. So what if he had a golden body? He could not block the annihilating dragon star arrow at all. Arr! Zhao Luan roared furiously, and the golden light on his body instantly dissipated. His 10-meter-tall body had also returned to the size of a normal human. Although this 10-meter-tall golden body could give him a 9-fold increase in battle prowess, it also made him a living target, and he was even more vulnerable to Ling Han's attacks. Could it be that Zhao Luan was going to surrender? "I'll let you witness my true strength," Zhao Luan said in a menacing manner. As he stretched out his right hand, it actually turned into the shape of flowing water, pitch black like ink. Ling Han's heart trembled. It was this aura that had torn apart his physique with Zhao Luan's previous attack. His flesh could not be stopped at all, and it had directly corroded all the way to his godly bones before it was stopped. Could this be the ancient technique that Zhao Luan had been bitterly cultivating all this while? He thought to himself, but his hands did not slow down at all, and he shot out another arrow. Zhao Luan did not dodge or evade, and he madly charged towards Ling Han. Pooh! The origin power arrow shot onto Zhao Luan's body, and a strange thing happened. Zhao Luan's body actually turned into liquid, and it was so soft that it could not withstand any force. The arrow easily split open his body, and then directly passed through it. Furthermore, his split-open body automatically fused back together, just like water ripples. No matter how powerful a divine weapon was, could it cut through flowing water? Chapter 994. Zhao Luan had already arrived, and his fist smashed out at Ling Han. Ling Han raised a hand to parry, but he immediately discovered to his shock that Zhao Luan's arm had also become like flowing water, breaking through his block and blasting down at his chest. Pung! He was immediately sent flying, and only landed on the ground after flipping 3 times. He lowered his head, and saw that his chest had been corroded, revealing his white bones. As expected, it was this kind of attack. Ha ha ha! Seeing that this move was effective, Zhao Luan instantly laughed loudly, and once again brandished his fists in a flurry of attacks. This was the ancient technique that he cultivated, and it was called Corrosive Water 3000. Previously, he had been standing under the waterfall to observe the rules of flowing water, and from there grasped this ancient technique. Now that he was using it, its might was indeed astonishing. At this moment, Ling Han did not have a very good way to deal with it, and could only continuously retreat. Zhao Luan had definitely not simply transformed into liquid. Otherwise, with the might of a mountain river tier attack, even a large river could be turned into billions of water droplets, and Zhao Luan would have been smashed to pieces. Now, Zhao Luan had displayed the softness of water to the extreme, and was completely unaffected. Then, no matter how monstrous your power was, could you hurt me in the slightest? Ha 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 ha. This is true power. Zhao Luan laughed madly, throwing one punch after another. With the supportive power of the nation, he was equivalent to being one subminor level higher than Ling Han, and the power of the nation also had the effect of protecting divine sense. Now, his corrosive water 3000 could even pose a threat to Ling Han's physique, so no matter how he thought about it, victory was already within his grasp. In a battle of equals, I am invincible. Hearing Zhao Luan's hooting, Sha Yuan showed an expression of dissatisfaction, but he had to admit that in a battle of equals, he was indeed no match for Zhao Luan. He had not been able to defeat him before, and he was even more unable to defeat him now. This ancient technique that could transform into flowing water, filled with corrosive power, was really too terrifying. Turn into corrosive water. Zhao Luan laughed loudly, his eyes exuding a crazed cold glint. He had actually been forced to this step by Ling Han, and had to reveal this ancient technique ahead of time. This made him very displeased. This should be his trump card, which he would use to suppress powerful enemies in the future. Now that he had revealed it in advance, he would definitely be targeted by others, and they would look for ways to counter it. Thoughts flashed through Ling Han's mind. Previously, he had used the flame divine pattern to dispel the corrosive water poison. Could this be used to restrain his opponent? He was a man of action, and as the arrow condensed, he had already circulated the divine pattern of flame. Xiao, the arrow of origin power, shot out, and the originally white arrow had a light red tint to it. Zhao Luan was fearless, not even bothering to block. He was going to repeat the same trick, allowing the arrow to pass through his body. Pooh, the arrow arrived and without any suspense shot into his left shoulder. However, as he had expected, the arrow did not fly out without causing any damage. On the contrary, his expression suddenly changed, revealing an expression of pain. Black smoke was rising from his shoulder, and there was a faint smell of roasted meat. Zhao Luan staggered backward, his face revealing an expression of disbelief and shock. Ling Han had actually broken his corrosive water 3000. How is that possible? Don't think that fire could restrain water. If the corrosive water 3000 could be easily restrained by fire, then would he still need to spend so much time cultivating it? The corrosive water was extremely poisonous, and did not fear fire. At least as far as he knew, to restrain his corrosive water, the only way was for his opponent to completely overwhelm him, shatter his body with a single strike and severely wound him. Only then would the corrosive water 3000 stop circulating. Ling Han's power was definitely not that strong. Then there could only be one reason. The quality of his opponent's flames was terrifyingly high, not even inferior to his corrosive water 3000, which was why he could use fire to restrain water. What cultivation technique is this? He couldn't help but ask, incredibly jealous. One had to realize that he had spent several decades to successfully cultivate this cultivation technique, but Ling Han had broken through to the mountain river tier for less than a year, and could already cultivate a secret technique to counter his ancient cultivation technique. How could he accept this? This was practically a blow to his outlook on life that was about to be distorted. Ling Han gave an "oh" and said, "It's not any cultivation technique. It's just that I obtained a flame mountain river stone from the flame cave, and after refining it, I obtained a divine pattern of flame. I didn't think that it would coincidentally restrain you." Zhao Luan was dumbfounded. It was actually so simple. Ling Han did not cultivate any secret technique at all, and merely refined a few mountain river stones. He really wanted to cry, but he immediately thought of the effect of the gravity mountain river stone, and its effect was extremely shocking. And what Ling Han had obtained had to be a mountain river stone with a special attribute, which bestowed upon him a divine pattern of flame. Damn it, damn it, damn it. He repeatedly cursed in his mind. Was the divine pattern of flame really so powerful? One had to know that he had also obtained a flame mountain river stone. Though he had not personally obtained it, but obtained it through an auction at a high price, the divine pattern of flame definitely could not resist the corrosive water 3000. Unless Xiaolun suddenly asked, "How many flame mountain river stones did you obtain?" Only 7. Ling Han said as he charged toward Xiaolun. Now that he knew how to restrain the corrosive water 3000, what threat did Xiaolun still have in his eyes? Pung pung pung. He rapped his fists with the divine pattern of flame. This was much simpler than attaching it to arrows of origin power. The 7 divine patterns all lit up, and his fists burned with flames. With one punch, Xiaolun repeatedly spat out blood. 7. Xiaolun's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How precious were special mountain river stones. Even a genius like him could only reach the island twice, and obtain only 2 gravity mountain river stones. Ling Han actually obtained 7. He was practically a monster. This became the last straw that broke the camel's back, causing his fighting spirit to collapse. Moreover, he had been hit by so many arrows previously, so how could he have hit a dog? He did not have a tough physique like Ling Han's, and merely relied on origin power to forcibly suppress it. But he had to widen his golden body of 9 meters, and also suppress his injuries. How great was the pressure! Now that his fighting spirit had collapsed, he was instantly unable to hold on. Pung! He had been brutally beaten by Ling Han, and this time he was truly defeated like a mountain. There was no turning back. That's what you get for being arrogant. That's what you get for being domineering. Ling Han treated Xiaolun like a sandbag, and continuously bombarded him. Didn't you want to kill me? Come on. You're just bullying others because your cultivation level is higher, and your background is better. What's the difference between you and those useless profligates? What number 1 prodigy? Bullshit. The more Ling Han spoke, the angrier he became. He turned his anger into fists, and continuously punched Xiaolun's body. Have you had enough? Xiaolun shouted. He was the only son of great General Zhao, so when had he ever suffered such humiliation? I can't take it anymore? Ling Han raised his foot, and was about to stomp down on Xiaolun's face. Everyone was so frightened that they stopped breathing. If this foot stomped down, then there would really be a great enmity between the 2 parties that would not rest until one party was dead. But when they thought about it again, Xiaolun had already made it clear that he wanted to kill Ling Han, so there seemed to be nothing to be afraid of. Why you dare? Meanwhile, Xiaolun's face was pale with fright. If his face was stomped on in public, would he still have the face to see others? Chapter 996. If one were to say that the 9th king was bold, she could even scare a mouse into screaming, but if one were to say that she was timid, she could even do something like falsely conveying her imperial will. And in Ling Han's eyes, she was only a lonely little girl. Just lonely. Not to mention that she was the 9th king, with high status and power, and also had the protection of an empress who saw her as a sore spot. She was actually very lonely, and had no playmates of the same age. The other 8 kings and Empress Luanxing were all busy with cultivation all day, and had no time to play with her at all. The guards by her side were all respectful and obedient to her, and could not possibly become her friend. Thus, when Ling Han saw that she did not kneel, she instead praised him as Ling Han still has backbone, because she had seen too many people kneel to her. This was also why Shui Yinyu was able to quickly become friends with her, because she longed for a bosom friend of the same age. In the company of the 9th king, Ling Han had a good tour of the imperial capital. It was not until sunset that the 9th king reluctantly let him go. When Ling Han returned to the academy, he saw that Li Weiwei and Ji Yun-er were already there, and the 2 girls could not contain their excitement. You guys are grinning so widely that your mouths are almost touching your ears. You've come to get the wager, Ling Han said with a smile. I went to collect the debt at the first moment, how would they dare to not pay? Li Weiwei was very proud, and took out a black card and threw it at Ling Han. This is a True Origin Stone card issued by the Empire. You can exchange it for True Origin Stones at the Empire's bank at any time. It's very convenient, and you can take out as much as you want. Ling Han nodded. 4 million true origin stones was not a small number, and probably even the Empire's bank might not have such a number. But he was also a person who was an emperor, and knew that this virtual currency could be multiplied many times to promote the development of commerce. Anyway, in terms of cultivation, how much could this thing be used up in a day? Most of the time, true origin stones were only used as a hard currency, becoming a currency. With the backing of the nation, it could naturally be issued in excess. It was no wonder that Li Weiwei and Ji Yun were incomparably excited. They had only invested 3,000 true origin stones each, but they had first multiplied it by 10 times, and then multiplied it by 100 times. Now, each of them had a wealth of 3 million. In fact, 3,000 true essence stones was already a very large amount of wealth. When the two women took out such a sum, they felt pain in their hearts. But now that they had 3 million true essence stones, they were naturally overjoyed. Ling Han was also very excited. It was just that this kind of business could only be done once. After knowing how monstrous he was, which gambling house would dare to give him such huge odds in the future? He nodded to himself. If he wanted to earn money in the future, he would have to return to alchemy. Now that he had enough capital, he could squander it on alchemy. Otherwise, after refining a few furnaces, he would be penniless. That's right, I heard that there was another person who bet on you to win. Together with our bet, we almost made the gambling house spit out all the bets we took. We didn't even earn a single cent. Li Weiwei laughed loudly. Ling Han was surprised. There was actually someone who cared about him. Who was it? A cold yet beautiful face immediately appeared in his mind. Shui Yinyu was probably the only one who knew about his devilish side, and probably the only one who would support him. I got you an invitation to the auction. The time is the night after tomorrow. Don't miss it. Li Weiwei handed over an invitation. Ling Han took it, nodded and said, I will definitely be there on time. Only then did Li Weiwei smile in satisfaction, and leave with Ji Yun. Because they had earned a small fortune, they naturally did not care about the meager income from selling ingredients. The two women only asked him for some ingredients for their own use. After eating these things, they would become addicted like spirit meat. Not long after the two women left, Shui Yinyu arrived gracefully. Wife, you finally remembered your man, Ling Han said smilingly. Who is your wife? Shui Yinyu immediately blushed, and rolled her eyes at him fiercely. Tisk so thin-skinned, but I like it. Ling Han walked over, and was practically pressed against Shui Yinyu's body. Shui Yinyu could only retreat, but the moment she retreated, Ling Han advanced. Very soon she was pressed against the wall, and there was no way out. Her pretty face was completely red, and she asked, What do you want to do? Want to? Ling Han nodded, and his whole body pressed against Shui Yinyu's graceful and delicate body, causing her body to tense up instantly, appearing extremely nervous. Shui Yinyu did not understand the dirty joke he was talking about at first, but she only understood after thinking about it. Instantly she rolled her eyes. This guy was usually serious, but she did not think that he was actually so lewd in private. Have you decided to bear my children? Ling Han asked smilingly. I have a serious matter to discuss with you, Shui Yinyu said seriously. I am also talking to you about a serious matter. Ling Han's large hand was already exploring Shui Yinyu's delicate body. It's only been half a year, and you seem to have grown a little bigger. Pervert. Shui Yinyu's pretty face was extremely beautiful. Ling Han laughed loudly and asked, What serious matter do you have to discuss with me? Let go of me first. Let's talk about it like this. I have serious matters to discuss, and you can talk about your serious matters. How could Ling Han retreat? He had already occupied 2 high grounds, and was currently measuring the measurements. Shui Yinyu's whole body went limp, and she wanted to push Ling Han away, but was too weak. She could only roll her eyes at him fiercely. However, she was naturally very flirtatious, and rolling her eyes was almost the same as throwing flirtatious glances, which made Ling Han even more excited. I accepted a mission that can be completed by 2 people, and I came to ask you to come with me, she finally said. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh loudly and said, Did you miss me and specially found a reason to stay with me? Who missed you, you pervert? Shui Yinyu naturally would not admit it. Ling Han lifted her chin and said, "Girlie, if you didn't miss me, why would you come to me yourself?" "Hee, since you've already come to me, if I don't eat you up, wouldn't I be letting down your kind intentions?" He picked up Shui Yinyu and walked into the house. Shui Yinyu was scared out of her wits. She was really afraid that Ling Han would cook her into cooked rice right now, and hurriedly struggled. "If you don't want me to eat you up right now, that's fine too. However, you have to agree to a few conditions of mine," Ling Han said with a naughty smile. Shui Yinyu had no choice, and could only agree to a few of Ling Han's humiliating conditions, causing her pretty face to remain red. "Now, can you tell me what mission you accepted?" Shui Yinyu rolled her eyes at him, and then said, "To annihilate a group of pirates." She panted, and a large hand kept moving around her chest, causing her thoughts to be restless. She rolled her eyes and said, "Can you stop for a moment?" "No." Ling Han shook his head sternly. "Have you forgotten the conditions you promised me just now? This damn pervert." Shui Yinyu whimpered in her heart, but she had to admit that she actually liked this kind of feeling very much. She enjoyed it, but the reserved nature of a woman made her want to reject it, yet also welcome it. Students in the Shattering Void tier do not need to complete any missions, but starting from the low extreme division, they must complete a certain number of missions every year. Otherwise, they will be expelled from school. Shui Yinyu forced herself to calm down. "Oh." Chapter 997. Students of the Scarlet Heaven Academy had to complete a certain number of missions every year. Of course, you could also complete a large number of missions within a year, and then not do a single mission for the next few years. This was because after advancing to the immortal level, a casual seclusion could last a few months, or even a few years. They couldn't expel a genius student just like that, right? The mission that Shui Yinyu accepted was not too difficult. Although it was to eliminate this pirate group, it did not need to be completely annihilated, but only needed to eliminate a certain number of pirates. This mission could be accepted repeatedly, and slowly this pirate group would naturally weaken and be eliminated. However, this pirate group was some distance from the imperial capital. If they walked, even a mountain river tier cultivator would have to walk for over 10 days. Theoretically speaking, Ling Han had offended many people, and was viewed as a thorn by the other two majestic empires. It was extremely unsafe for him to leave the imperial capital, or even the academy, so he really should not run so far away. However, Shui Yinyu knew that he had a spatial god tool, so even if he was chased, he could easily hide. He could not give up eating for fear of choking, and hide in the imperial capital for the rest of his life. If that happened, Ling Han would really be crippled. In the imperial capital, his achievements in this lifetime would be limited to the consummate level of the Mountain River tier, and he would not even be able to break through to the Sun Moon tier, what more to the Heavenly Body tier. In this regard, Ling Han expressed his agreement. He and Shui Yinyu agreed that after the auction ended, they would do this mission together. "Oh, that's right, you also bet on me winning, right?" Ling Han asked. Shui Yinyu nodded, a smile immediately appearing on her pretty face. "How much?" 10,000 true origin stones. Ling Han bared his teeth and said, "Then it became 1 million. Haha, I earned quite a lot. 1 million true origin stones. Even the left minister would have to frown to fork out such a sum. What more a fifth-rate force like the Shui clan? It's all thanks to you." Shui Yinyu smiled like a flower. Not only was Zhao Luan defeated, but he was also publicly slapped in the face, and even slapped with a shoe. This naturally became big news, and soon spread throughout the entire imperial capital. Everyone was discussing this matter, guessing what kind of reaction Great General Zhao would have. However, unexpectedly, Great General Zhao actually issued a notice, scolding Zhao Lun and severely criticizing his actions. However, he did not mention Ling Han at all. This caused everyone in the imperial capital to be astonished. Great General Zhao had always been domineering, and he only had one son, Zhao Lun. Yet he had actually suffered such a great loss. When Ling Han learned of this, he revealed a vigilant look. Great General Zhao reprimanded Zhao Lun in a righteous manner, but he didn't mention Ling Han at all. This was clearly a way of expressing his stance. My son didn't handle this matter properly, so I criticize him. But I, Great General Zhao's son, can't be humiliated by anyone. If you don't mention Ling Han, do you think that Ling Han is destined to become a dead man? Ling Han thought to himself. If Hu Feiyun hadn't interfered in this matter, would Great General Zhao still have issued this notice? Then we will deal with soldiers with generals and water with earth. He had originally wanted to live a low-key life, waiting for his cultivation to increase before revealing his brilliance. But who asked him to wear the halo of hatred? Something always happened to him. 3 days later, Ling Han headed for the auction house. This auction house belonged to the imperial family. Thus, no one dared to falsify the auction items, and no one dared to bid recklessly or go back on their word. The auction house was very large, and the layout of the building was very similar to that of an arena. In the middle was the auction stage and the 4 sides were platforms. Below were the ordinary seats, and from the 2nd floor onwards were private rooms. There were a total of 5 floors. Ling Han took the invitation and entered. Then, under the guidance of an attendant, he entered a private room on the 4th floor. Li Weiwei and Ji Yun'er were already seated inside. This private room belonged to the left minister. Only the empress and the 9 kings had the right to sit on the 5th floor. The 4th floor belonged to the left and right ministers, the 7 generals, and so on. In short, the higher the floor the private room was on, the more esteemed its status was. "You're late. Drink 3 cups of wine as punishment," Li Weiwei jeered. Ling Han sat down and tasted the wine. It was very fragrant, but he naturally completely forgot about the 3 cups of wine as punishment. "Stupid blockhead, putting on airs," Li Weiwei said in displeasure. Because today was the first auction after the opening of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, it was especially grand and high class. Obviously, there would definitely be mountain river stones on auction today, and there would even be those with special attributes. However, the quantity would be very limited. Ling Han received the auction catalog and scanned it. He saw that there were a total of 12 ordinary mountain river stones and 2 special attributes. One was metal and the other was water. What made his eyes light up was that there would be a flight god tool for sale this time. Its name was Cloud-Piercing Shuttle. It was activated by True Origin stones, and its maximum speed was 4 times that of a Sun-Moon tier at full speed. He was about to travel far, and if he had such a flight god tool, he basically wouldn't have to worry about being hunted down, unless a heavenly body tier was sent to hunt him down. But how many heavenly body tier cultivators were there on the entire Joint Peace Planet? The situation in the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm was special. Otherwise, what heavenly body tier would specifically hunt down a mere mountain river tier cultivator? This cloud-piercing shuttle, he definitely had to obtain it. He continued to scroll down, and discovered that a few items were only described as extremely precious, but there was no specific introduction, which made him feel strange. Was it really good to whet people's appetite like this? He asked Li Weiwei for guidance. They had participated in more than one auction, so they should be more experienced. Generally speaking, things without specific introduction are all very precious, Li Weiwei said with a nod. But sometimes that's not necessarily true. It could be very rare, but no one has a use for it, so it's not strange to not be auctioned. Come, he still had to save some money. What if it was useful to him? Because they were all in private rooms, he didn't know who had come. However, the private rooms on the top 2 levels belonged to those few important figures, so it was very easy to deduce. Zhao Luan is also here. Li Weiwei looked around and humphed. This shameless guy actually has the nerve to meet others? Ling Han was also very surprised. He had just been publicly slapped, and he had appeared so quickly. This made him look at Zhao Luan in a higher light. Being able to ignore the gazes of others meant that he truly possessed the domineering aura of a king tier. A true king tier wouldn't care about what others thought, and his mind would definitely not be shaken. Zhao Luan had come, and so had Sha Yuan. The 7 generals and the descendant of the right minister had all come. Today, there is destined to be a bloodbath. Li Weiwei laughed and said, however, "No one is a match for me." She now had 3 million True Origin stones in hand and was very rich. Very soon the auction began. Ling Han made up his mind. He definitely had to obtain the cloud-piercing shuttle, so he had to be careful about how much he spent. Though mountain river stones were good, Li Weiwei and Ji Yun would both fight over them, so he planned to give way. An elder walked onto the stage and said smilingly, "I've made everyone wait for a long time. Then let's begin today's auction." All of a sudden, the whole venue became silent. Chapter 998. The auction proceeded very quickly. Everyone had a rough idea of what items were worth. Thus, even if there was a premium, it wouldn't be too high. Not many people fought over ordinary items. Since they could buy them outside, why would they spend so much money here? However, when they encountered truly good items, it would trigger an intense fight. When the first mountain river stone appeared, it immediately triggered a small climax. It reached a high price of 7,000 true origin stones, and was won by Li Weiwei. She was about to break through to the mountain river tier soon. With a mountain river stone, she could advance to the low extreme first, and then slowly cultivate later. It would save her a lot of time. The second and third mountain river stones were also auctioned off. The ones who won were basically Li Weiwei, Ji Yun and Shui Yanyu, who asked them to all earn a lot of money, and now they were very rich. Ling Han waited for a long time, and finally the cloud-piercing shuttle appeared. After a brief introduction, the elder announced the starting price. The starting price is 100,000, and each increment is no less than 5,000. It was very shocking. The starting price was 100,000, 110,000, 120,000. Because flight god tools were very rare and very practical, it triggered a fierce competition from the start. Very soon, the price was pushed up to 500,000. However, from 500,000 onwards, there were fewer people still competing. After all, this was a high price that would make most forces frown. When the price reached 700,000, there were only 3 people still competing. 730,000 going once. 730,000 going twice. The elder began to count down. 800,000. Ling Han called out. 800,000. Someone has bid 800,000. The elder was overjoyed. The higher the price, the more rewards he would receive. In a private room on the 3rd floor, someone raised the price. 810,000. 900,000. Ling Han said very casually. In this auction, he was definitely going to get the cloud-piercing shuttle. Thus, he didn't mind spending all his true origin stones. His competitor hesitated for a while, and then continued to bid. 910,000. 1 million. Ling Han called out a sky-high price. This time, no one else bid against him. After all, the truly great forces naturally had flying god artifacts long ago. Of course, no one would complain about having too many of such treasures, but 100 true origin stones was really the limit. After all, they would encounter a god artifact like this every few years, so why would they be in such a hurry? Next up is a mysterious treasure. The old man made a gesture and a beautiful maid immediately walked up to the stage. She was holding a tray with a small bag on it. This maidservant was very pleasing to the eye. She wore a low-cut dress that revealed a large portion of her snow-white skin. The 2 bulging peaks on her chest gave off an alluring outline. However, no one gave her a second glance. Instead, they were all staring at the small bag. That was the mysterious treasure. What exactly was inside it? I'm not sure if everyone has heard of a type of divine tree, known as the reincarnation tree. The elder scanned the area with his gaze. What reincarnation tree? Never heard of it. I've never heard of it either. What kind of divine tree is it? Most people shook their heads. It wasn't that they were ignorant, but that this so-called divine tree was definitely too unpopular. Could it be? Could it be that reincarnation tree? Someone suddenly exclaimed. This was an elder sitting on the ground floor. He had a head full of white hair, and his beard was also white. Elder Zong, do you know? Someone beside him hurriedly asked. This person's surname was Zong, and he had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Right now, he was still at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. It was almost impossible for him to break through to the sun-moon tier. However, because he had lived long enough and because he liked to flip through all kinds of ancient books, he was also known for his extensive knowledge. The reincarnation tree is a legendary divine tree that doesn't belong to this world. It can allow our divine sense to roam freely. An instant has passed in the outside world, yet you can experience 3 lifetimes. It's incredibly miraculous. Gasp, then wouldn't there be no cultivation technique that can't be comprehended using this? Everyone exclaimed in astonishment. This was too astonishing. This kind of treasure could make any force go crazy over it. Who was so prodigal that they would even take out such a treasure to sell? Ling Han's heart also stirred. He had drunk reincarnation tea before. It was only a small sip, yet it allowed him to experience a lifetime and comprehend the mysteries of the shattering void tier in advance. Moreover, the strength of his divine sense far surpassed that of those at the same cultivation level. Tea made from the leaves of the reincarnation tree was reincarnation tea? Hehe, this bag contains the seeds of the reincarnation tree, the elder said with a smile. His words caused 1,000 ripples. Instantly, a considerable number of people stood up, their expressions filled with excitement. One had to realize that the accumulation of origin power only required time. For example, for mountain river tier cultivators, each minor level would increase their lifespan by 100,000 years. Then, they would definitely be able to increase their origin power to the pinnacle in 10,000 years at most. What was difficult was comprehension of cultivation level and the strengthening of one's divine sense. However, if they could cultivate under the reincarnation tree, one moment would be an entire lifetime. Would they still have to fear that they wouldn't be able to comprehend the mysteries of martial art and strengthen their divine sense? Snatch, snatch. Right now, there was only this thought in everyone's mind. The elder chuckled again and said, however, I have to explain something to everyone first. Although the seeds in this bag have been appraised and confirmed to be reincarnation trees, the legends state that the reincarnation tree doesn't belong to this world. Thus, no one knows how to plant them and make them sprout. Moreover, according to ancient records, the reincarnation tree requires 12 trillion years to grow. It's precisely because it takes a long enough time to grow that the soul of a cultivator can live through a lifetime in a short period of time. Pooh! Everyone wanted to vomit blood. Whether the seeds could sprout was still a problem, but even if they did sprout, they would still need to grow for 12 trillion years. Who could wait that long? One had to realize that heavenly body tier elites, even those at the consummate level, only had a lifespan of 40 million years. They were still far away from 100 million years, what more 12 trillion years. It was said that the ancestors planted the trees, and the descendants reaped the shade. However, once the seeds were planted, no one knew who would be able to enjoy them. Perhaps their own clan or force would have long since died out. 12 trillion years, not 1.2 billion years. Who could guarantee that their clan would be able to flourish for such a long time? With this explanation, the majority of people lost interest. The starting price is 1 million true origin stones. With an increment of 11,000, the elder continued. He sighed softly. He knew that explaining things clearly would definitely cause the value of the reincarnation tree to plummet. However, the auction house had its own rules. If they lost credibility, how could they continue to do business in the future? 1,010,000. 1,020,000. There were still people bidding. After all, this was a genuine divine tree. If they sold it after winning the bid, they might be able to make a huge profit. Bid for it, Small Tower suddenly said. Ling Han asked in his mind, it needs 12 trillion years. Do you think we can wait until that day? Chapter 1000. Ling Han didn't think much of it. He was indeed in need of true origin stones. Though he just earned 4 million, he only had 100,000 left after this auction. Moreover, he'd actually won quite a few items, but he really couldn't sell them anymore. He had to leave some true origin stones for cultivation, right? But no matter what, he couldn't teach the indestructible heavens scroll to others. Moreover, even if he was willing, he couldn't teach the cultivation technique because the level of the cultivation technique was too high. Sha Yuan didn't get angry when he saw that Ling Han wasn't moved. Instead, he clapped his hands and said, Dong Yu Mayor, you two go and entertain my friend. Yes, the two girls said sweetly and slowly walked to Ling Han's side, one on each side, and were about to lean on him. Ling Han frowned. He stretched out a hand and pushed, and the two women were pushed back by him. What? Not satisfied. Sha Yuan was slightly surprised. Dong Yu and Mayor are the stars of the fragrant inn. Not only are they as beautiful as flowers, but they also have the cultivation level of the mountain river tier. With the huge population of the chaotic star's majestic empire, the word beauty was really too common. There would definitely be 1 in 10, and exquisite beauties weren't rare either. There would be 1 in 100. It could be said that beauties were a kind of resource, but also a kind of resource that was very worthless. However, immortal-level beauties were very rare. This was a threshold, and even with the resources of the immortal realm, there were pitifully few people who could cross it. Thus, this restaurant was very unusual, actually able to bring out 2 mountain river tier beauties to drink with them. Ling Han shook his head and said, "If there's nothing else, Brother Sha, I'll take my leave first." "What's the hurry?" Sha Yuan hurriedly said, displeasure flashing through his eyes. A lowly commoner from a small world actually dared to call him Brother Pei. But now he wanted to obtain the cultivation technique on Ling Han, so he could only ignore it. He smiled and said, "You still don't know, right? Dong Yu and Mayor are top-notch, guaranteed to make you feel like you're walking on clouds." To think that he could even say 2 words, he was really drunk. He suddenly stood up. Even if he really had sex, he wouldn't touch 2 brothel girls. "You're not satisfied with them?" Sha Yuan thought that Ling Han was disdainful of the 2 women's identities. He laughed and said, "Ling Han, as long as you hand over that cultivation technique, it's not like I can't even part with my 4 handmaidens. You should know that they are all genuine virgins." When he saw that Ling Han had so many beauties around him, he thought that Ling Han was a lecherous person who would definitely be charmed by beauties. The expressions of Lu Ying and the other 3 women did not change, as if they were puppets. How pathetic. Ling Han sighed in his heart, but he didn't have the ability or the time to meddle in other people's business. He immediately said, "A gentleman doesn't take someone else's good things. Goodbye." Ling Han. Sha Yuan's expression became stern, and he said, "Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you have the 9th king supporting you. Don't forget, you're just an ant from a small world." "Thank you for your reminder," Ling Han said calmly. His impression of this person was extremely low. To be honest, although Zhao Luan was vengeful and very domineering, he still felt that he was much stronger than this person. The dragon had 9 sons, and each one was different. As expected, even a person like Great General Sha was no exception. If it wasn't for the fact that Sha Yuan's talent in martial art was not bad, he would really be no different from an ordinary hedonistic son. "Ling Han, this is the last warning." Sha Yuan raised his voice. Ling Han didn't pay him any attention and swaggered off. Pung! Sha Yuan slammed the table heavily, and the wine cup toppled over. The fine wine instantly spilled onto the table. "Young Master Sha." Dong Yu and Mei both leaned over and called out coyly. If this had been any other time, Sha Yuan would definitely be all smiles, and come over to grab them one in each hand. But now he humphed and used his hands to block, pushing the 2 women to the ground. "Do you really think that the 9th king would fall for someone like you?" he said coldly. "Lu Ying, keep a close eye on him. If he makes any movements, immediately report to me." "Understood." Lu Ying half knelt and accepted the order. Ling Han walked out, shaking his head internally. In the first place, things like buying and selling were all consensual, what more when it was a secret technique? Wasn't it very normal that he wasn't willing to teach her? This kind of young master of a noble family had probably never been rejected before in his life, and he couldn't tolerate others saying no either. After returning to the academy, Ling Han immediately entered into the Black Tower. "Small tower, how do I plant it?" He drew out the reincarnation seed. "I'll first clear out a place." Small Tower's voice was slightly cautious, completely different from before. This let Ling Han know that even for Small Tower, this reincarnation tree was still extremely valuable. Hung Long Long. Small Tower was the true ruler of the Black Tower. Under its control, a piece of land was cleared out, and it was filled with an aura of spirituality. One had to realize that no matter what Ling Han had planted before, Small Tower had always been indifferent, but now it actually personally cleared out a place for planting. It was clear how important it was. Your luck is really nature-defying. The reincarnation tree is a supreme precious treasure, Small Tower said. Strange, why would there be a reincarnation seed in this place? Ling Han opened the pouch and saw that there was a seed that was only the size of a broad bean inside. However, there were multiple rings on its body, and if he counted them carefully, he would find that there was no end to them. It was impossible to count them all. In that instant, even Ling Han felt as if his spirit was exhausted, and a layer of sweat actually appeared on his forehead. No wonder, even with the level of martial art on the Joint Peace Planet, they could identify that this was a reincarnation seed. This was indeed very strange, and could not be faked no matter what. Plant it, Small Tower said. Ling Han threw the seed into the newly cleared land, and Small Tower used its mystical power on this piece of land. Suddenly, the whole piece of land was shining, colorful, and incredibly wondrous. All right, now we just have to wait patiently, Small Tower said, its voice revealing a sense of exhaustion. Ling Han nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work." He exited the Black Tower and began to fiddle with the cloud-piercing shuttle. Before setting out, he naturally had to know how to use this thing. The cloud-piercing shuttle was only about 3 meters long and had a streamlined shape. Its entire body was silvery white, just like a silver shuttle. Thus, the space inside was naturally not big and could only seat 2 people side by side. There were also only 2 rows in front and behind. For Ling Han, this was not a problem. He had the Black Tower, which meant that he had unlimited space. After a while, he understood how to use this thing. He reported to the academy that he was going to go out on a mission. This was a necessary procedure. Furthermore, Ling Han still had another identity, and that was the ruler of the Great Ling Empire. He was currently a hostage, and if he wanted to leave the imperial capital, he would have to first obtain approval. Otherwise, this would be seen as a provocation toward the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. 2 days later, he obtained the approval of the academy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.